A dimly lit room. A man named Ono Tadashi is frustrated, asking why people in the 21st century still use so much paper. He checks the clock. It's already late. Now he's worried he might not even catch the last train home. The main character is about to leave, but suddenly stops and looks at the computer screen. He sees a beautiful picture of nature and starts thinking how nice it would be to live a calm and peaceful life in the countryside. He feels a bit sad, but suddenly remembers the train and says that if he doesn't hurry, he won't make it home today. Suddenly, boxes full of papers come crashing down on him. He shouts in surprise and starts cursing as the whole shelf falls on top of him. He looks at his own blood and wonders, annoyed, why he's the only one working extra hours today. He knows that even if he asked for help, no one would come. He looks up at the table where his computer is and says he won't make it to the last train. He tries to call someone, but then realizes there's no point asking for help. No one can help him now. He looks at photos on his computer and admires the farming life in the village. He says it feels like everything is coming to an end. Little by little, his vision fades right before his eyes. He wakes up in a strange place, and someone calls him a lost soul. In front of him stands a beautiful girl. She smiles warmly and tells him he's now in Avesta. The girl introduces herself as Arya, the goddess of beginnings. Tadashi asks her to wait a moment. The goddess explains that the main character doesn't understand what's happening right now. She tells him that he was brought to this world, Esther, after he died on Earth. Tadashi finally realizes the truth and says, "So that means I'm already dead." In his thoughts, Tadashi thinks how pointless his death was. He looks around, amazed by how beautiful everything is. He wonders to himself if this is heaven, but then remembers that she mentioned another world. The goddess explains that he has a chance to be reborn and start a new life somewhere else. Tadashi quietly asks himself about it again. The goddess says this is a real chance to live life again. Her soul is pure, so she truly deserves their blessing. The goddess now calls on the other gods to join her. The main character suddenly sees gods appear before him. Arya says that these are her family, the 12 gods of Avesta, and that he can choose one of them to give him a blessing. He looks at all the gods and notices how different they are from each other. Then, an old man catches his attention. He walks over to the old man in the hat, says sorry, and comes back to him. The old man asks what he said, then introduces himself as Kronos, the god of harvest. The main character, surprised, repeats the question and looks at the old man in disbelief. Suddenly, the old man turns away and says he won't say anything more. He urges the boy to leave. The old man adds that he's almost sure the boy will soon complain that working in the forest is too boring, and that starting a new life somewhere else isn't worth it if it means doing this kind of work. He also says that if you want to become a hero, it's better to choose either the god Gelcobalta or the goddess of wisdom Mia. Grandpa says that wise men are really famous and powerful these days, and if you get their blessing, you can learn magic. But the boy says no, because he likes farming more, even if that might sound a bit strange. The old man is really surprised and asks if the boy truly means what he said and if he was listening carefully. The boy explains that he has always dreamed of living a peaceful life in the countryside, and the blessing of the god of farming is perfect for that. Rampus still can't believe it and, stuttering a bit, asks if he's really sure about this. Then he says, "If you want to become a master, it's better to go to the volcano." The boy turns to Kronos and asks what he can offer. The god of agriculture is glad you asked. He explains that agriculture isn't just about plowing fields, managing forests, fishing, raising animals, making drinks, cooking, or processing food. In fact, this list could go on and on. The main character says that in this situation he trusts him. He calls him Mr. Kronos. Grandpa starts to cry. The boy is surprised and asks if the old man is really crying because of what he said. The old man says he can't help but cry, because in 10,000 years since the world began, 2024 people have come here, and he is the very first one to choose farming. The boy asks if that's really true. God remembers that he hasn't asked the boy for his name yet. The main character says his name is Ono Tadashi. Grandpa says that's a wonderful name. He's still surprised by the boy and tells him, a bit unsure, that it's really strange to be born again and start a new life as a farmer. He admits he finds it odd, but adds that the boy definitely won't regret his choice. Then he turns to Arya. The goddess asks what's going on. Grandpa says he won't get another chance like this, but he has one last request, even if it costs him his life. He asks the goddess to give all his power to Ono Tadashi. The goddess replies that she understands. Grandpa turns to Dasha and says he will give her all his power. Suddenly, everything starts to glow. The main character looks at her hand and asks what has appeared there. She is told it's a mark. Now she has chosen to save the world. He looks at his hand where a special mark has appeared. It's the blessing of the god of agriculture. 7 stars. Suddenly, someone calls out to the old Kronos and asks him to stop. But then Mia, the goddess of wisdom and the god of heroes, appears. She demands an explanation and says he's lost his mind. Giving a human 7 stars breaks all the rules. Grandpa asks why she took it and tells her to take a look for herself. He also wants to know what the rules are. The god of heroes says he doesn't care, but people were only ever given up to 5 stars. Mia supports him and says that even in farming, you can't just give someone 7 stars. She reminds him that the rules of this world can't be broken, and that Lady Arya won't let this go easily. The main character comes back to Arya and asks if it's true. The old man gets really angry and tells me to be quiet and listen to him. Her grandfather tells her to be quiet and says that farming is the most important thing for people. Arya asks them to listen and explains that everything happens for a reason. She turns to the goddess of wisdom and says the world is in great danger. She says that in this case, Avastar is just waiting for the end. Mia feels confused and doesn't know what to say. Arya adds that the world there is still not very developed. Most people are still fighting over land, and hunger and poverty are common in many places. She asks Mia how many people she has helped thanks to 2024. Mia says she thinks it's around 533 people, at least that's what she remembers. Then she turns back to Helcabalt and asks him if he really has blessed at least 800 people. The god of heroes nods and confirms that this is true. Arya says that, with only a few rare exceptions, at least 4 people became dragons through the blessing of the monster god. As for Oda, there were 24 demon lords under the demon god Diabel, and 6 forge masters who received their gifts from Vulcan. But Arya says he chose the god of farming first. His skills aren't for fighting, so the 7 stars won't make him the god of battle. She says that the more food there is in the world, the better it is for everyone. Mia answers that she doesn't care how many times Miss Arya explains it. She still doesn't agree. She looks at the guy with frustration and asks if he is Ono Tadashi. The main character says yes, and wonders what will happen next. The girl asks him why he can't just pick one of them right now. She tells him he has a big heart and deserves more in life than just working in the fields. The god of farming gets angry, but the girl still wants to know what the real problem is. Kronos turns to Mia and Helcabalt, but suddenly stops and says that before he forgets, the main character needs some tools, so they should visit Vulcan. Grandpa adds that he's already blessed Tadashi and can vouch for him. Mia gets upset and asks who Kronos thinks he is. The god of agriculture says he's the hope of this world, but the monsters here are just too strong. Even with his blessing, Tadashi will still be weak in a fight. The god thinks one blessing just isn't enough. Mia disagrees and says it's not allowed. No one has ever received blessings from more than one god. The old man says she is too petty, and if he wants to survive in Avesta, he'll have to fight. He turns to the god of heroes and asks if he agrees, since this is all to save the world. The god of heroes apologizes and says no. The god of agriculture drops to his knees in front of the man. The man is shocked and tells him that gods shouldn't bow to each other. The old god says he's become so weak now. This is all he can manage. Tadashi. In his mind, Helka thinks that this time, Kronos has definitely gone too far. The god of heroes hesitates for a moment, but finally agrees, just as Kronos lifts his head. Helcabalt tells the main hero he will grant him the blessing of a hero, exactly 1 star. He asks the main hero to hold out his hand, and in that instant, a bright light appears once more. Then he turns to Vulcan and says it's his turn now. Vulcan agrees with Kronos, but says he can't even give away a single star. He asks what's wrong with him. Then he looks at Tadashi, waiting for an answer. Tadashi thinks to himself that Vulcan isn't confident at all, and gives him an encouraging reply. He starts explaining that when gods give blessings, they become stronger by drawing some power from the person they choose. This energy needs to be accepted. So, what does the main character do? He awkwardly apologizes and admits he doesn't have any money. Vulcan looks surprised, bursts out laughing, and jokes with Kronos, saying this guy is really something. The volcano explains that the payment isn't money. It can be given later. For example, it could be a simple temple or an altar. The boy realizes this means a place where people come to worship. The god of blacksmith says he enjoys good drinks and tasty food. He also mentions that he was the first to choose farming. The main character happily thanks Vulcan, and then turns to the god of heroes, asking what he wants. He replies that actually, he doesn't really want to give his blessing. Tadashi says he can take it back if he wants. He points out that he is a polite person and suggests just forgetting about it. I thought it was just a simple gift, he adds. Finally, he says the most important thing is not to hold any grudges. The goddess of beginnings turns to the main character and asks if he's ready. He answers yes and thanks her. Arya tells him to leave the blessing given by the gods behind, here in the world of people. She smiles at him and wishes him a happy life. The main character is surprised. She snaps her fingers. The main character suddenly finds himself in a cloud. He shouts loudly. Trees come into view. A moment later, he lands on the ground. The main character is really surprised and shouts, asking where he is. He's standing in the middle of a desert. This place is Avesta, a subcontinent limbo. Prinus comes down from above and greets the main character. The main character looks at him in surprise. The old man says he will quickly explain what is happening. The main character says he has no idea where he is. The old man looks around and names everything he sees: mountains, rivers, a forest, and wide open fields. Then he adds that it doesn't really matter where they are, because this place has everything they need to live. Dasha realizes that the air is actually honest, and she remembers how she once dreamed of being a farmer in a quiet town. She never imagined she would one day end up in a place as wild as this desert. He says he's happy to do what he's always wanted, but he's surprised that he has to start from scratch. The old man explains that this place hasn't been ruined by people yet. He says that, in other words, every country charges a pretty decent tax for this kind of activity. The main character is really surprised because he never even thought that there could be taxes in another world too. The old man asks if he still wants to go to that country, since he'll have to pay a lot of money to the rich people there and put up with being treated badly by them. The boy asks him to keep telling the story. The main character thinks it's the first time he's seen the gods themselves reveal everything about their fantasy world. Farmers here are extremely poor, barely getting by because of heavy taxes. Some people might believe this is a test from the gods, but I know that's not true. Grandpa says there's war and corruption everywhere now, and that only he can save everyone. He also says he doesn't want the boy to see how bad things can get in this world. The main character tells Grandpa he's a really kind person and thanks him sincerely. He asks God if these lands are truly empty. God answers that this subcontinent is called the Limbo and is known as a place without God's blessing. The local rocks are so hard that your tools can break easily, and even the trees are tougher than iron. The river doesn't flow with water. It runs with poison. The old man says no one can survive here. This makes the main character angry, so he asks, "Then how am I supposed to live in a place like this?" Grandpa, a bit annoyed, asks you to keep listening. He says these lands were abandoned by the gods, which is why everything is so bad here. But he was blessed by the god of farming, and now he has the power of 7 stars. The main character asks how he can use this power. The old man tells him that first, he needs to dip his hands into the river. The boy is surprised and asks again. He reaches out his hand toward the water. I think to myself, that's the poisoned river. Suddenly, a light appears and the water becomes safe to drink. Grandpa says it's okay to drink the water now. The main character is surprised, but agrees. The old man says his blessing can purify any water. The man is happy and thanks him. But God says it's too soon to thank him, and that when his body was brought into this world, he became 20 years old again. God also explains that now, the main character doesn't have to worry about injuries or sickness. The main character finally understands why he has always felt so light and comfortable here from the very beginning. The god of farming says he has a small farewell gift for the boy. The old man turns slightly toward the young man. Dasha asks what it is, and Grandpa says it's his magic sack, the perfect thing for farming. There's endless space inside, and time doesn't work on anything you put there. So nothing ever spoils or rots, no matter how long it stays inside. The main character is asked if it's okay to take her. The old man replies that, except for the fact that he took her from the treasury without permission, there's nothing wrong. The boy objects, saying that's not the right thing to do. God tells him not to worry, because later he will apologize to her. He also says that it's her own fault since she didn't give him her blessing. Now she'll have to pay for it with her artifacts. The young man says he'll do everything he can to forgive the old man, and asks what kind of sacrifice she wants. The old man tells him not to worry, and adds that when she's angry, it's better not to bother her at all. God calls them to keep talking. He checks if the main character understands that the clean water is safe to drink. The old man says it's time to move on now because they need to find some food. He says the boy can even fill the bag with water and suggests trying it out. When the boy does, God praises him and adds that until he finds some clay and makes a proper pot, this is how he'll have to live. The main character pours water out of a bag and exclaims that single-use dishes will soon be gone. Suddenly, he spots something interesting. Suddenly, a fish swims right into his bag. He's completely shocked and shouts out loud, not believing what he's seeing. Stuttering a little, he asks what just happened and if that was really a fish. Grandpa is happy for him, congratulates him on his first catch, and says that now they have lunch sorted. His grandfather suggests taking a walk in the forest to look for something useful. The trees are bare, without any leaves. The main character picks up a branch. The main character is surprised to realize that these trees are actually magical and made of iron. The old man asks if he has found anything. Tadashi happily replies and adds that he's surprised. The blessing even lets him understand the local plants. The old man explains that this is completely normal, since that's exactly how this level of analysis should work. He says the only thing he still doesn't understand is why Alicia's herb is needed. The god of agriculture answers that he's actually lucky. He explains that this particular herb is very valuable and is named after the goddess of healing, Alicia. But this herb shouldn't even exist here, so the god has no idea how the boy managed to find it. The grandfather thinks that she can see them and is helping them. The boy says he will definitely thank her and plant some grass as soon as he has free time. The grandfather praises his grandson for being so kind. The grandfather asks what they are going to plant here and says they need to loosen the soil first. Meanwhile, the boy is working on something behind his back. When the grandfather turns around, he sees that the boy has made a tool for the job. The grandfather praises him and says, "That's a clever idea." The boy says he almost got what he wanted, but instead of making a shovel, he made a hoe. Grandpa cheers him up, saying it's still a great start when you're starting from scratch. Grandpa adds that now the boy has a goal, and encourages him to work honestly and give it his all. Tadashi thinks this is the first time he's ever used this tool on Earth. He starts counting in his head, and the hoe hits the ground with a dull thud. Huge cracks start to appear all over the earth, and the ground is breaking apart. The god of farming is shocked, and asks in surprise what's going on. The boy is also confused, and calls out in panic. The old man suddenly shouts loudly again. The boy asks what happened. The old man is so surprised he doesn't even know what to say. But Grandpa says they should ask the boy, and he asks him what he just did. Tadashi answers that Grandpa told him to put his heart and soul into it, so that's exactly what he did. God grumbles and asks if something is wrong. The old man picks up a handful of soil and thinks to himself, "This boy didn't just work the land, he actually made it better and more fertile." The old man says he really doesn't know because no one has ever received the blessing of the god of agriculture before. He doubts his own power could have such an effect on people. The god suggests that maybe the main character influenced himself in some way. He also adds that sometimes human wishes can create real miracles. Speaking of human desires, the main character suddenly remembered an old picture from his past, a computer screensaver showing a beautiful nature scene. The main character says he always dreamed of doing something like this. Actually, his grandfather points out that he always knew he was a good person. Now God is calling him to try and water the land. The main character is watering the ground. I notice the soil starts to get its natural color back. Grandpa suggests planting something now, maybe some grass. Elisaya remembers that he has some grass seeds. The main character plants some seeds and they start growing right away. Amazed, she says out loud, "Wow, how are they growing so fast?" Then she wonders how this could even be possible. The old man sighs and says he can feel his strength leaving him. This is Tadashi's blessing. It will help grow any plant in just 3 days. The main character thanks him for explaining and says things are starting to make more sense now. Grandpa is surprised that the boy didn't even seem shocked. He tells the main character to collect the animal bones they found along the way, crush them into powder, and use it as fertilizer. The boy waters the plants, and they start growing even faster. The main character happily shouts again. Grandpa says that even the fertilizer works better now. And if things keep going like this, he'll be able to grow a big tree in just 2 days. Grandpa suggests planting something else, and the boy happily agrees. God reminds them it's getting late, and they need to chop wood for the fire. The main character admits he doesn't really want to cut down a tree that will soon be growing. He gently touches the tree, as if saying sorry to it. A guy starts chopping down a tree. He asks God if he needs to dry the wood before making a fire. God says he'll explain everything right now. Freshly cut trees are full of moisture, so you can't use them for a campfire right away. But if you wait and take care of them, they'll dry out in about 3 days and then you can use them. The guy thinks 3 days isn't too long to wait. Grandpa says not to worry because there's a better solution. He suggests the main character should use the tree to survive. The hero asks if he's sure, and Grandpa agrees again, even calling the tree as tough as an old rag. Tadashi squeezes the wood as if it's just a piece of cloth. He's really surprised and shouts out in amazement. God says he's figured out what can still surprise him. The main character is amazed, thinking this must be magic, not a blessing from God. He can't believe that such a tree could just grow like that. The old man turns to the boy and tells him not to judge everything by the rules of his own world, because here, gods live beside people they have blessed. He says that a blessing isn't some kind of magic. It's really just God's own power at work, and God can do anything. And the boy has been blessed too, so he shouldn't forget it. A young guy looks at his hand and thinks that the 7 stars of the god of farming really do work wonders. The old man suggests lighting a fire. The guy apologizes and asks how he should make the fire. God tells him not to worry and to lay out some dry grass. The main character does exactly what he's told and asks if he's doing it right. The old man says yes, that's correct, and now he needs to take 2 stones and strike them together to make a spark. The main character listens carefully to everything God says. First, he finds a spark, then he makes a fire. God tells him to move the fire to a tree, so he does. In the end, this turns into a real bonfire. Tadashi asks God if he thinks a campfire is beautiful. The god of farming says that out of all his work, he loved lighting a fire with his own hands the most, and he finds it fun. The main character says that this nighttime campfire is exactly what he always dreamed of. The god of farming says it's really helpful sometimes to just sit down and chat with someone by the fire. They sat by the campfire and talked all night. The main character watched the stars, listened to the sounds of nature, and felt nostalgic. In a past life, this was only a dream for him, but long ago, his ancestors lived just like this. In the morning, Dasha woke up and started thinking. The god of farming asked him, "So what happened?" He answers that he was just thinking about his future and realized he really needs to build a house. He also needs something to boil water in, and actually, a lot of other things too. God asks him what's stopping him, since yesterday he found some clay. The main character remembers her and realizes he had completely forgotten. He mixes this with sand to make the material stronger. He does a great job and notes that even though he struggled before, now it's going really well. He thinks that maybe the blessing of the god of smithing is helping him. The old man looks at the beautiful cord in the boy's hands and asks what it is. The boy explains that it's Digimon pottery and mentions that his ancestors used to make things like this. The god of agriculture says it sounds interesting and adds that items from the boy's world are really lovely. The main character says they just need to roast them over the fire now. He notices they're already starting to burn. Nearby, God quietly chuckles. He says that everything is happening just like he said it would. The young man asks what he means. You can hear confusion in his voice. The old man explains that if you rush things, the dishes might break. But with the blessing of the god of blacksmiths, everything turns out well. The boy says he'll keep polishing them. This will make the dishes look nicer and help protect them from moisture. They keep cooking together. The main character realizes he hasn't felt this happy at work in a long time. Usually, he just does the same boring tasks all day, every day. The guy says he's hungry and needs to make something to eat. God reminds him that he actually caught a fish earlier when he was getting water. Then Dasha tells him to wait, and they ask if it's even safe to eat it. God says this is a demonic salmon. You can eat it, but catching it is really hard. Plus, if you cook it the wrong way, it turns poisonous. The guy asks again, surprised by what he just heard. The god of farming calms him down and says everything is fine, because the moment he touched him, he removed all the poison. The main character asks again to make sure it's really true. God says that if he ever gets bored with fishing, he could just quit and take up martial arts instead. The man replies that he doesn't want anything like that. He just wants to be a simple farmer, nothing more. The old man says it was just a joke, but reminds everyone that even after cleansing, some creatures stay hostile. This forest is full of those kinds of creatures. God tells him not to worry because he will be with him tonight. Still, he suggests finding shelter or building a small hut. Suddenly, the boy notices something, starts to stutter, and asks what that was. The old man says it was just a strange bird and tells him not to pay attention to it. The boy says he needs to make a weapon. God asks why, since he already has one. The boy explains that if he uses demonic ore and special wood, the weapon will be even stronger than steel. So anything made from these materials will be better than an ordinary sword. He also reminds the main character that he's a real hero and has a special gift. Stalin says he's stronger than anyone else in the world. The boy replies, but he sounds unsure of himself. But he thinks it's better to be prepared. The old man agrees and asks if he remembers the Alicia grass, then adds that it can be used to make powerful medicine. The god of farming says it's always best to prepare ahead of time. If you follow this advice, it could save not just yourself, but many others in the future. The young man looks at him, a bit confused, thinking, what is he even talking about? But since it's the god himself saying it, it's probably not a good idea to argue. He suggests they keep cooking. First, he slices the salmon, then drops it into boiling water and adds some mushrooms. The boy thinks the dish smells delicious. He tastes it and realizes it's good, but it needs more miso, sauce, or just some salt. The god of agriculture suggests adding some herbs instead. Alicia is there too, so Tadashi asks her if it's okay to do that. He notices that it tastes even better now. The old man says it's actually an ingredient in the elixir of life, but it also works pretty well just as a spice. While the soup is being made, the old man says that even though he's a god, it's safe to bring him food as an offering. The main character is surprised to hear this and asks what kind of offering he would actually want. The god admits that he'd really like a stone statue, but for now, he's happy with what he gets. The food is ready. Grandpa wishes the boy a good meal and asks if he likes it. The boy says the food is really tasty and that he hasn't had anything this good in a long time. Tadashi is happy that he enjoyed it. The god of farming says he'd even invite that green-headed guy to try this meal, and while it may sound bold, he admits he'd also like his own statue. The hero guesses he's talking about the volcano. Grandpa nods and adds that after all, this god can make the best tools in the world. The god of blacksmithing suddenly appears. Vulcan immediately says he doesn't need much convincing. Kronos hands him a bowl of soup and asks him to try it. Vulcan notices that it's a fish soup. He tries it, and Tadashi asks if he likes it, calling him Mr. Vulcan. Vulcan says it tastes great. Then Kronos turns to Vulcan and says that now that they've eaten, it's time to get to work. Vulcan looks surprised, not sure what Kronos means, and jokes that he'd rather enjoy his meal a bit longer. The god of farming agrees and offers him something to eat, but asks him to pay close attention. He tosses something into the blacksmith god's hand and asks if he can recognize it. Vulcan replies that it's a piece of demonic ore. Kronos wonders if he can really do it and says it seems impossible for him. But for the god of blacksmiths, with his divine power, nothing is ever impossible. The volcano spirit is surprised that any divine power is here at all. The old man looks very shocked and asks, not quite believing it. He says he's never heard of mortals being able to do anything with such power. He insists on hearing the secret behind it. The god of blacksmithing says the real issue is that people just can't think big. Then, he turns to the main character and explains that to get the job done, you'll need a few tools. A furnace, an anvil, a hammer, and some tongs to hold the hot metal. Tadashi asks him to speak a bit more slowly. God replies that they will start with something simple. For example, a furnace. He says that, of course, it would be great to have some molds for smelting and a place to keep the materials nearby. But for now, this will be enough. The main character finishes building the furnace and announces that it's ready. Vulcan says it's time to light the fire, and now they need to add air and wood until it gets as hot as possible. The god of blacksmithing praises him and says that now they just need to add fire. Tadashi points out that demon trees don't burn. The god asks if he's really sure about that, because with enough effort they actually can catch fire. Most people just don't want to bother, so they say the wood can't burn. Tadashi says it's still not burning. The god of blacksmithing replies that he knows, and asks to wait a bit and watch closely. Slowly, the flames start to catch on the branches. Volcano then asks the main character if he sees it, and explains that the fire has changed color from red to blue. Tadashi says that you just need to heat this ore hotter so it will catch fire. Then he guesses it should be the same for demon ore. The god of blacksmithing praises him, saying Tadashi got it right straight away. They also mention that Mia doesn't understand this and always tries to take items made from this ore away from him. The volcano says he knows what to do, so it's time to take action. He promises to stay close and help if needed. The main character thanks him. Tadashi gets to work. He treats the stone, and soon the ore turns blue. He thinks for a moment and decides that everything is going as planned. The god of blacksmithing speaks to the hero. The main character flinches and answers a bit nervously, but the god only praises him. He explains that if your aura has turned blue, that means you're ready to work with it. He also says he's never had a better student. The hero thanks him for such a compliment. The main character wonders what to do next. He decides to ask Vulcan for advice. Vulcan says, if you don't know where to start, just make a simple metal plate first. Then you can use that plate later to try forging a hammer or something else. He thinks that even if things don't work out, at least he'll know which direction to go next. The volcano says everything is going well, and when you're done, you need to put it in water. He adds that you'll get blue ore in the end. It's super strong and makes great tools. He compliments the main character and says this is a pretty good start. The main character holds up the finished tool and says his hammer is ready. He did it! He admits it doesn't look perfect yet, but what matters is that it gets the job done. With time, it'll look even better. The god of blacksmithing reassures him, saying it turned out great. He adds that with more practice, his skills will keep improving. The main character promises to try harder and asks to be taught. The volcano says that's great and suggests that next time they should mine more ore and build a better forge. The volcano also asks if the boy knows how to work with clay or earth. A boy shows some clay pots and wonders why God didn't seem to notice these creations. Tadashi explains that he made them by firing clay at high temperatures, and that's what ceramics are. God thinks for a moment, then says it's probably time to make ceramics even better. He suggests, why not invent a special chamber just for firing them? The guy says he'll be happy to help if he can. God replies that he has nowhere else to go, so Deshi and Vulcan decide to team up. Anyone would envy how fast they were. Together they could achieve anything they wanted. The main character falls asleep. The man next to him notices and says it's good he finally got some rest. He adds that everyone needs a break, even those who are lucky in some ways. But he doesn't mind, since the hero has been working for 2 days straight. So let him sleep. The god of agriculture says that Tadashi has made really good progress. In response, Vulcan agrees and adds that if even the god of agriculture says so, then it must be true. A seed planted in rich soil and well cared for will definitely grow and bring a great harvest. In response, the other man asks if he thinks the young man will truly thrive. He replies that he can't say for sure. He explains that in the days they've spent together, he's learned one thing. The boy isn't someone who's ready to risk his own life. Volcano says that no matter what happens, he did a good job preparing the boy. The boy may not save the whole world, but he definitely has a chance to make it a little better. Meanwhile, the god of agriculture is thinking to himself, the place where the boy ended up is actually just an old abandoned prison in the world of Avesta. God thinks that as long as Tadashi is here, he can change everything, not just for the locals, but even for the gods themselves. He says the boy should at least give it a try, and they'll just watch to see what happens. The god of blacksmithing hesitates for a moment, but then agrees that it's true. Kronos also nods. Both gods turn around and see that the young boy is awake. One of them exclaims that Tadashi is no longer sleeping and starts talking to him. God says his lessons are over, and now they will leave him alone for some time. Tadashi thanks them. The volcano standing nearby notes that it has not had students like them in a very long time. He asks the main character to reach out if any problems come up, but he jokes that he won't help for free. He wants a nice gift first. Everyone laughs. Tadashi says everything is fine and he can be trusted. The Minister of Agriculture says you should first take care of yourself and get settled before you think about giving to others. The young man agrees, saying that makes sense, but he still thanks the minister for the advice. Nearby, the volcano urges Kronos to hurry up. The old man says he will miss the boy, but rules are rules. He asks him to take care of himself. The boy agrees and thanks him once again for his help. The gods are leaving. Kronos shouts that they will meet again. The main character watches them go and feels certain they'll see each other in the future. He looks at the rising sun and says it's time to gather his very first harvest. That's how his new life in this world began. After the third harvest, the field had changed a lot. The cypresses and chestnut trees he planted were already starting to look like a real forest. He built himself a small house, a storage room for grain, and a little cellar. That's all he needs for the quiet life he's always dreamed of. The main character admits that lately, he's been feeling a bit lonely. But he thinks this can be explained by the downsides of living so far away from everything. The boy started dreaming about having a pet and wondered where he could even find one in such a remote place. Suddenly, the main character hears some shouting. He wonders what those screams could be. He thinks to himself that he really doesn't want to get involved, but maybe he should at least take a look. If things get dangerous, he'll just run away. They follow the sound of the screams. The main character is really surprised. Suddenly, right in front of him, he sees a puppy running away from a monster. He thinks that if he does nothing, things will get worse. He wonders what he should do. He considers whether he should try to save the situation or if it's better to run away. Suddenly, he remembers what the god of farming said about him being very strong now. The main character realizes what he needs to do. He confidently takes a tool from his backpack and thinks that the god of farming has truly given him strength. The main character tells the monster to back off and picks up a poker from the floor. He wonders if he managed to scare the creature. Meanwhile, the monster is watching him closely. He keeps looking for the puppy. The boy says he's really persistent. At the same time, he already has a plan and knows that a direct attack won't work here. If it can fly, then you could just shoot it down. He throws clumps of dirt at the monster with his hoe and yells at it to go away. The monster is surprised and gets angry. The main character asks if it wants more and dares it to take off into the air. The monster roars back at him, furious. The main character throws dirt at him again and yells that there's plenty of land here, so he shouldn't be shy. He warns him not to even try coming closer, or he'll bury him right on the spot. The boy tells the flying bird not to come back, and jokingly calls it a huge chicken. A small animal is trembling in Dasha's hands. He wonders what the little creature thinks about itself and what kind of hard wounds it carries. The main character looks at the animal's terrible wounds. He asks the animal to wait a moment and starts taking things out of his bag. He pulls out some kind of plant and gently wraps the animal's wound. He hopes this will help. Takashi softly pats the animal's head. The main character asks the puppy where he came from and where his parents are. In his mind, he realizes that this puppy clearly isn't from around here, and guesses that it either got lost or was running away from that monster. Then, the main character sees the puppy reaching for a bone and asks if it wants the treat. The animals are already getting hungry. Someone asks the man what he is doing, and he answers loudly. He's sure that if the puppy eats those bones, it will break all its teeth. The main character gives the man some food and tells him to eat. He smiles to himself, and I think it's really cute. Even though he doesn't know who this animal is, it looks a lot like a dog. Tadashi says he can't stay here and suggests they leave together. The animal makes happy noises. The main character picks up the puppy and feels happy knowing they will live together now. He remembers that the little one needs a name. The man looks at the puppy with a questioning gaze. The main character suddenly gets an idea. He says, "Since this little creature makes funny sounds, let's call it Kuru." The boy is happy now because he's no longer alone. The main character is lying on his bed, thinking about how the forest is spreading and the fields are getting bigger. He already has a few types of crops he can use for cooking, but he's worried. The season is almost over, and there's still so much he hasn't done. He looks out the window and thinks he could find out what's out there. So, he goes outside and starts getting ready. As he looks over the things they've gathered, he says he's not sure what they might need, but it's best to be ready for anything. He talks to the courier as if he's already an adult. The boy notices how quickly he's grown up. Tadashi wonders if it's normal for him to grow this fast. But either way, he feels like he's a different breed, just like dogs in this world. He tells Kuru they're going on a short trip. The animal gives a soft growl, as if asking why. Pointing toward the horizon, he explains they're heading to the sea to get some salt. He doesn't know how many days it will take, but there's nothing else to do around here at this time of year anyway. The boy asks the animal if it can see where he's pointing. The animal growls happily, as if it wants the main character to write this down. Tadashi asks again but refuses, saying he can go on his own. The beast still wants the main character to climb onto its back. The boy is really surprised and shouts in shock. The animal starts moving. They cover huge distances very quickly. The young man tells Kuruwaru that this is unbelievable, because they're going as fast as a car. The beast growls happily. They reach the sea quickly. In front of them, a beautiful view of the ocean opens up. The boy says that walking would have taken many days. He praises Karuta and thanks him for bringing them. The main character notices that the sea in this world looks a lot like the one he knows, and it surprises him. He doesn't even realize that the water is actually very dark. He believes he can make it clear. The boy touches the water, and suddenly it turns crystal clear. He is amazed and shouts with joy. The boy tastes the water. It seems salty and reminds him more and more of the sea from his world. He thinks their worlds are actually quite similar. Anyway, it's worth trying to collect some salt. He also believes that others will support this idea right now. If you boil salty water and let it evaporate, the salt stays at the bottom. The main character is boiling salty water and wonders if it's possible to collect salt this way all the time. Suddenly, an animal appears next to him. The boy turns to the animal and asks who it is. The main character gets excited about seafood and shouts about it. An animal calls him to follow. The hero wonders if he should go after it. Kururu leads him to the pond. The boy excitedly says it's a really beautiful spot. He mentions that the pond is absolutely huge. Kuru is also served to the main character, and it comes in lobster claws. The main characters are surprised to see that lobsters even exist in this world. The main character is unsure about the lobsters because he still feels like he's in another world. But soon, he lets go of all his doubts and says he doesn't care whether there are lobsters or not. The table is full of delicious seafood. Tadashi breaks off a piece and asks Kururu to give it a try. He thinks to himself how tasty it is, and right away notices the salty flavor. That's not surprising, since they live in the sea. Again, he tells himself, this tastes absolutely amazing. Kuru got sad when the food ran out. The main character comforts him and promises to make more, so there's no need to worry. A ship can be seen behind Tadashi. The main character noticed that Kururu was drinking a lot. He thought it was because of the salty food and decided to give him some water. The guy turns around and sees Kururu on the other side. He's surprised. If Kururu is over here, then who is drinking the water? The main character turns around and sees a girl. Surprised, he shouts out a question. The girl, who has cat ears, says they're out of water. The boy is still in shock and can't even find the words to ask anything. In his mind, he wonders if this is really a girl at all. He notices in his mind that this girl also has ears like that. Before, he'd only seen ears like these on fantasy creatures. He wonders where she's from, and if her world ever has problems with water. The girl asks him for some water and food, calling him a gentleman. He's surprised she called him that and tells her to wait for a moment. A girl with tears in her eyes hugs a boy who is freezing cold. Suddenly, a few more girls run up to them. One of the girls yells at the boy like he's a stranger and tells him to get his hands off Aaron. The main character is totally confused and has no idea what's going on. First, the girl with cat ears, and then an elf. He guesses that they were on that ship. He got so caught up in eating seafood that he didn't even notice them. Then the guy suddenly stops and wonders why a girl in a swimsuit would be here, since elves usually live in the forest. Now he's just confused and has no idea what's going on. The second girl asks if he heard her. She yells even louder, telling him to stay away from Aaron. The main character asks her to let him go, saying that neither he nor the girls are enjoying this. From behind the elf-like girl, other girls start telling him to let her go, saying, "Hey, that's a boy. It's crazy to think that Aaron could be grabbed by some guy." The girl with the animal ears talks to the boy again, calling him master, and asks if she can have something to eat. Tadashi says he'll give her food, but only if she stops calling him master. The girl tells the elf, calling her Islin, that he is a good person. Islin asks her to stay away from him. She asks her if she can see that he's a person too. The elf replies that humans can be very tricky, and maybe the food is poisoned. Tadashi denies it and says all the seafood was gathered recently and right here. He also adds, why would he poison food that he's eating himself? Then he asks who they are. The elf girl asks in surprise if this is already the border of human lands. The main character looks confused and says, "I don't understand what border you're talking about." She asks where they have arrived. It says that God told them this is the edge of the world. The girl asks again in surprise, "The edge of the world?" She wonders how she ended up so far away, and immediately notices that the water at the edge of the world is black and poisonous. The boy explains that he cleaned it, because otherwise how could he get salt and seafood from it? The elf asks him again, and tells him not to lie. Iselina says she doesn't believe him. The boy replies that it's their right not to trust him, but he really is telling the truth. A girl with cat ears asks if anyone wants something to eat, and mentions she has clean water. Then, a girl with elf ears questions if she even understands what she's saying. Aaron asks what happened and says there's no food or water left on the ship. She says if she hadn't met this man, she would have died already. Iselina, sounding a little unsure, agrees that it's true. The main character says that if they really need it, he's willing to share what he has. But then he changes his mind and apologizes, saying maybe he can find something for them later. The girl with elf-like ears politely refuses. She explains that after everything humans have done, they just can't be trusted. She looks at Kururu and asks what kind of magical creature it is and why it's so big. The boy asks again if she really means Kururu. He insists that he's just an ordinary dog and claims he doesn't understand what she's talking about. Inside, he's at least glad to finally know who Kururu really is. Out loud, though, he keeps saying he's only a little dog. Okay, maybe a wolf at best. The girl shouts back that no dog or wolf could ever be so huge. She yells that his fangs could easily bite through even dragon scales. She says she doesn't know who he thinks he is, but he must be the famous Fenrir. In her eyes, he turns into a real monster. The girl was so scared that she fainted. Someone holds her from behind and calls her Miss Iselin, asking her to wake up. Tadashi is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. Everything feels blurry in front of his eyes. The girl slowly starts to come around and whispers something softly. The main character, standing in front of her, asks if she's awake now. She suddenly yells, calls him a human, and pushes him away. He asks if she can stop treating him like this, since everyone else accepted his help without any problems. He says they told him what happened to them. They went fishing, but the water carried them away. He doesn't know what they'll do next, but first, they need to rest and get their strength back. He hands her a bowl and says, "Drink this." She asks what it is. Tadashi says it's Lizzie's herb water, and it will help her feel better. The girl almost falls again and asks once more about Alice's grass. I ask where he found such a rare plant. The main character asks how she's feeling. He tells her she probably doesn't realize how dehydrated she is and that she hasn't eaten for a long time. She received a 3-star blessing from the goddess of healing. So, of course, she immediately knew he wasn't lying and that this really was Elysia grass. She believes it's really hard to find or buy. She thinks that he is actually a good person. The main character helps her get something to drink. But soon the elf girl stands up and says she can keep drinking. The guy is happy to hear that and suggests she try getting up. She suddenly notices grass beneath her and asks in surprise since they were just at the beach. The main character explains that he picked her up because lying on the sand wouldn't be comfortable. The girl asks him again, not quite believing him, and wants to know how Alyssa's grass is growing. Deep down, she's still surprised by this man. She thought he was lying about the sea. Plus, since Fenrir works for him, the elf starts to wonder who he really is. Right now, Tadashi is petting the animal and praising it, telling it that it did a great job. The girl notices his hand and spots a blessing with 9 stars on it. She thinks that, since he has the highest authority, it's best not to argue with him. She apologizes for what she said and did before. Then he introduces himself as the head of the CL and a representative of the Flounder Archipelago. And for Ariadne, he also calls himself an Isolene. The man reacts warmly and says he knows who she is, and that he's heard Ariadne is the queen of the whole archipelago. The girl asks him again and firmly says no. She explains that it happened a long time ago, and now she just leads the S-Elves. He apologizes to her. Then I remember that I still haven't introduced myself. He says his name is Ono Tadashi, and the girl bursts out in surprise, asking if he really is a king. She double-checks, making sure he actually said he was a king. The main character answers no and, feeling embarrassed, says she didn't hear the last name correctly. He explains that it's just his family name, and Tadashi is his first name. She asks for his name again, still unsure, and wonders if she said it right. The girl says that if someone has a last name, it means their family is well known. She guesses the main character must be a knight, a hero, or a wise man. But he disagrees and says he's just an ordinary farmer. She asks again, surprised. Then Aaron notices the girl who just woke up. She says this man is a good person. He even has 7-star blessings from the god of farming, and he can help any plants grow really fast. She says she's feeling dizzy again. Then I ask her if she really thinks anyone would just share their food for no reason. Aaron says that if they hadn't accepted help, they wouldn't have survived. She gives some seafood to the girl with elf ears and asks her to try it. Iselina agrees, but does so in a rather arrogant way. They say she'll just look at it. The main character feels confused and asks what's up with this strange behavior. After the girl tasted it, the boy asked if she was sure it wasn't poisoned. The girl answered seriously that if she wanted to check for poison, she would have made him try it first. She also said that she wished she could say no, but right now she really needed the energy. The main character wonders what she meant when she said she would make him try. He guesses that there might be something similar in this world. The girl with elf-like ears frowns, but she keeps eating anyway. The main character watches her and smiles. At the end, she thanks him for the food and comes back to him. The guy looks at her, clearly wondering what she'll say next. The girl drops to her knees. The main character is really surprised. The girl with cat ears is also shocked. Suddenly, the kneeling girl asks the main character if she can be his maid. The boy shouts out loud in confusion, not understanding what's going on. The main character keeps repeating her words in his mind. She asks to become his servant, but he can't figure out what it really means. At the same time, he feels the gaze of another girl standing behind him, and this just makes him even more confused. He turns around and tells them not to worry about it. He also says that he would never make a girl his servant. The elf girl says sadly that someone has to make a sacrifice if they want her help. She offers to do it herself. Irene doesn't agree. She says she's the leader, and it's not right for the elf to do this. Irene insists she will be the one to become the hero's servant instead. But Iselina refuses and shouts that the girl is a hero to the beast people and their last hope. The main character, standing nearby, asks why they want to thank him so much for his help. The girls look a bit confused and say this is the man they owe money to. The elf also says that all humans are bad and want to turn them into servants. The guy, surprised, asks what she thinks about him. Iceland wondered if he would like a beautiful girl to be his servant. His imagination quickly came up with a strange picture, and he felt embarrassed. He couldn't really see this happening in his life. He was also curious about what others thought about it. The guy says with surprise that he's always lived alone and never needed any servants, though Kururu doesn't count. The elf girl asks skeptically if he really means that. The other girl wants to know if that's true, then why did he help them? The guy can't figure out what the problem is. To help someone, he asks if people don't usually do that here. The girls shake their heads, clearly not trusting him. The main character is really surprised and can't even ask a normal question. He starts thinking that something is strange with the locals. Then he realizes he has ended up on the Kamabala archipelago, where elves and beastmen live. The elf says he was captured by soldiers from a human military duchy by the Eastern Sea. The boy asks if those soldiers obey him. She explains that before the duchy took over, demons kept attacking from the Northern Sea. Many of her friends were eaten. The boy thinks to himself that this is just horrible. She adds that sea elves and beastmen have always been weaker peoples, and during conflicts, they tried to stay close to the borders. But now the archipelago has been divided between demons and humans. Irina goes on to say that only the girls survived. She explains that all the men either disappeared during the war or were eaten by demons. Iselina says that the demons only see them as food, and life in the duchy is still better. But the demons' demands are just too much. Irene adds that the demons threatened to make her their servant if she didn't fill their 7 treasure chests to the top with gold. She makes it clear that she really doesn't want to be their servant. The main character remembers a conversation with God and realizes that these are the exact demands Kronos was talking about. The girls go on to say that they decided to run away and sail off on a ship to find food, just so they wouldn't end up as servants. The main character clenches his fist in anger, thinking to himself how terrible life here is and how cruel people can be. He turns to Exiled and says he'll share his food, asking if they eat just anything. The girl, surprised, says yes. The boy grabs his bag and starts pulling out food. Exiled is amazed. She picks up some of the food and asks what it is and what happened to the package. He says this should be enough for them for now. He asks if it's okay and adds that he can give more if needed. Aaron replies that it's perfect and thanks him, once again calling him boss. The main character reminds Aaron that he already asked not to be called boss. Behind him, the girl seems like she wants to say something, but she's too nervous. This makes him curious because he feels that something is off. Then, the elf remembers he gave her some Alicia grass and asks if he still has a lot left. Tadashi replies that he still has plenty, and there's even more growing in the field. He tells the girl to pick more of the grass while he keeps collecting it too. She looks at the plants in her hands and asks about the field. I'm surprised that he grows them himself. Iselina says she doesn't believe it, because this plant is very rare and incredibly hard to grow. The main character is amazed and asks why it's so difficult to grow this plant. The girl with animal ears tells her to calm down and reminds her that Tadashi is the king of farming. He has the blessing of the 7 stars, so it's really easy for him to grow her. The girl agrees and says Aaron is right. She totally forgot about that. The girl also mentions there are many injured people on the island, and she's surprised that he gave them the herb almost for free. The main character replies that she just needs to tell him how much more they need, and he'll give them everything. She sincerely thanks him and apologizes for not telling him earlier about her triple-star blessing from the goddess of healing. She explains that she can make a potion from Alicia's herb, and it will be much more effective than using the herb alone. The boy says that's really impressive. The girl offers to show what she can do right away. She grabs some tasty herbs, starts crushing them, boils some water, and in the end, pours everything into a glass jar. She picks it up, and suddenly a bright light appears. She calls Alicia to the healing goddess, begging her to give Alicia the power to heal. The main character is surprised. It turns out to be an elixir. She says it's a small price, but he should see it as a thank you for helping Dasha. Dasha agrees and takes it. He says he's never seen such a beautiful glass before. From a distance, Iselina asks if that's all he has to say, because she expected him to admire her skills. Tadashi apologizes and adds that her talent is truly impressive. Even he doesn't know how to make such a beautiful glass. She answers that glass is made from ordinary sand, so he could do it too. She then calls over another girl named Asya. She comes closer and tells Mrs. Aislinn that she is listening. The girl looks at her employer with a bit of nervousness. The main character looks at her and notices her glasses. Now he understands that people in this world already know how to make lenses. The elf says that glass, like the bottles, is created by Asha, and that she has a special blessing from the god of forging. He also explains that elves are naturally skilled at working with glass, but they also have their own secret techniques. If he helps them, the elves will share these secrets with him as a reward. The main character says he would be incredibly happy about this. He asks me to teach him because he also wants to make a glass like that. The girl feels a bit shy, but she agrees and tells him she'll show him everything he needs to know. But she says that even though there's so much sand under their feet, they don't have a single stove or any tools. Then Dasha says that now everything will be all right. He has a lot of materials with him. He takes out his bag and dumps everything onto the table. He asks what exactly we need and promises to take care of it. Now he feels happy that Kronos gave him this bag. Both elves are very surprised. Asya starts explaining everything to him, and together, they get to work. Iselina notices that he knows how to make bricks. She asks the other girl how he does it. Iselina thinks that he might also have the blessing of the god of smithing, which makes the brick-making process much faster because of his main blessing. The girl is surprised that he has the support of several gods. She thinks to herself that Asya is better at handling these things, so she can trust her. Meanwhile, the main character finally finishes building the furnace. He realizes he will also need to think about making portable versions in the future. Asya picks up a handful of sand and says that everything depends on the quality of the sand itself. She points out that sea sand has lots of shells, so it needs seaweed. Isolane suggests they use some seaweed from their ship. The main character thanks her and decides to take her up on the offer. Already on the ship, the main character notices something. He looks in that direction, surprised. He asks the girls if Undaria has a feathery structure. Iselina wonders if he even knows about this type of seaweed. The main character happily says that there was an ocean in his world too. He adds that he doesn't know how much glass is needed here, but he'll save some for soup. The girl asks him if he has any seaweed. She says that everyone who has been here before always threw it away and looked at seaweed strangely. He asks why you can't eat it and adds that it actually tastes good. He also says that not everyone likes seaweed because it has a unique flavor. Iselina wonders if it's true and says he would definitely look cool in the sea, just like a real sailor. She blushes a little and smiles. The hero thinks for a moment and, seeing the sign, realizes that there must be seaweed here. Maybe that means all Japanese people could be connected to it. The main character notices seeds of sea cotton and sea rubber. He uses his appraisal skill and starts wondering how this cotton is different from regular cotton. The girl explains that their clothes are made from sea cotton and rubber. She shows what she means by pointing at her own outfit. The boy blushes, feeling a bit embarrassed by her actions. He says he understands now, and jokes that maybe he'll have to start growing those materials himself. Then he asks if she can show him the right way to do it. The girl smiles and says she'd be happy to teach him, but she says growing this plant can take a year or even longer. The boy replies that it sounds interesting. He invites her to watch what he can do. They wade into the water up to their knees. Dasha throws a seed into the water. Iselina starts to wonder what will happen next, since he just planted it. Suddenly, a small tree grows out of the seed, and the girl is amazed. She exclaims in surprise. The main character nearby remembers that this little tree can be used as fertilizer. She says he is smart, and one useful thing he can do is help fertilize the soil. He agrees, gives it a try, and starts sprinkling fertilizer on the ground. The girl says she can't believe her eyes. She's amazed at how much the tree has grown. The main character is amazed. Such huge trees are growing right on the beach. Now he's sure he'll have more than enough material for glass. He calls out to Iselin and she answers him. He reminds her that she promised to do anything to thank him for his help and for the food. The girl gets a little scared, but she says that if it's in her power, she'll do whatever he asks. Right now, the world doesn't need healers or brave fighters. What really matters are people who can feed others. If that's true, Tadashi is ready to help, even if it means letting go of his own dreams. He says he's just an ordinary farmer and doesn't really understand how things work in this world, so he wants to make a deal. She looks at him, a bit surprised, and asks him to repeat what he said. He says that's true. He also says that as a farmer, he needs different plants, seeds, and knowledge. In return, he is ready to give them food and enough Elysia grass. He wants to make this island and its people happier and better. The girl says she understands, smiles, and blushes a little. Iselina adds that they are heading back to their island tomorrow morning, but she promises to do what he asked. The main character asks again about tomorrow morning. Suddenly, he realizes it's already evening. The girl, looking confused, asks what's wrong and looks at him, waiting for an answer. He says he was so tired today that he completely forgot to make his bed for the night. The guy is really annoyed. He also mentions that he used up all his materials on the stove and tools. The girl tells him not to worry and says everything will be fine. Iselin cheers Aaron up. He says he's fine and starts setting up the tents. Once the tents are up, the main character jokingly asks why they had tents with them all along. He thanks the girls, and everyone smiles. The main character sees Kuru running towards him. He tells Kuru that he did a great job today, too. Then he notices Kuru is covered in sand and asks him to follow. They head to the water together. Kuru growls happily. Now Kuru looks fluffy and nice. The main character peeks out to watch the girls who are bathing. He feels confused and isn't sure how to wash himself properly. Tadashi blushes and says they should build a changing room in the future. A smiling animator from the ice rink walks up to him and invites him to stay the night in her tent. He blushes and says it's probably not the best idea. He tries to politely turn down her offer. The guy says he'd rather just stay here and watch the campfire. Then the girl asks if there's something he doesn't like. Iselina and Asya pull him into the tent and tell him they can't let him sleep outside. Inside, they meet Aaron. She asks if this man is with them. The main character hesitantly says it's still a bad idea. Looking around, he notices the tent is much bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside. He agrees, saying he was persuaded. The girl with the animal ears is happy and says that Mr. Tadashi will stay with them because of you. Tadashi blushes, gets annoyed, and says now he's definitely not staying, then goes to sleep by the fire. Aaron just smiles. Suddenly, Kururu appears. The main character tells him that it was the animal that convinced them to stay, so they will spend the night here. Everyone falls asleep peacefully. The next morning, the main characters step out of their tent. They are greeted by cheerful Aaron, who asks if they're already awake. He says yes, and notices she's up early too. She asks him if he's going to work, because she thought he would take the opportunity. The main character asks her what opportunity she means. She pulls back the tent curtain and sarcastically asks if he likes what he sees. They see sweet Iselin sleeping. Aaron asks them to look at Iselin and reminds them that she would do anything for him. Tadashi wonders what's wrong with her and why she even accepts him at all. The girl laughs and says that Iselin isn't right for him. The guy replies that she's exactly his type, but he doesn't plan on playing games with her. The guy changes the subject and asks how the fabric stays on the tent. The girl says it's a silly question and answers, with glue, of course, how else? The main character notices that people here also use animal bones to make glue, just like they do back home. Asha greets everyone with a good morning and asks Desh if he wants to see how they make tents. She says the tent is flexible because it's made with sea rubber, and the frames are crafted from different types of wood. The main character replies that he understands and thinks the elves are really clever. Aaron asks the guy if he really likes it. The guy excitedly says he's dreamed about this his whole life. Then, Aaron asks the girl what she likes. She asks again, but at first she can't even answer. First, she says she doesn't know. But then, like a real warrior, she decides she enjoys fighting. Proudly, she even boasts that she once defeated some sharks. The main character looks at her, not quite sure he believes her story. He says he didn't expect her to react like that. An elf girl appears behind him. Tadashi wishes Iceland good morning and hands her some water, inviting her to drink. The girl admits she feels embarrassed because she almost never lets others see her when she's sleepy. The guy thinks to himself. He used to believe she preferred ordinary people, but now he realizes he was wrong. She really is a true princess. Iselina tells Tadashi that they are heading back to their island. She says that, judging by the strength and direction of the wind, they should arrive tomorrow. Tadashi asks her to get there as soon as possible and bring food for his friends. The elf thanks him again. The main character says there's no need to thank her because they agreed on this. He agrees, saying he just can't ignore the way people are treated here. The girl looks at him with admiration and blushes a little. She thanks him again. Now he understood what Kronos meant back then. Gods don't give power for nothing. You have to use it to help others. Iselina says that while they're away, she's leaving him in charge of Asya and 2 others, and asks him to look after them. The main character agrees and thanks her. She gets on the ship, and they set off. The main character waves goodbye and wishes them a safe journey. The main character says that now the girls can introduce themselves and share a little about who they are. He wants to give each of them a job that suits them best. The girls agree. One introduces herself as Lola and says she's really good at this. The other says her name is Barry and that she has experience working in the fields. The main character says he understands everything now and is counting on both of them, as well as Asya. He also asks them to change their clothes. He admits that they look great in swimsuits, but it's a bit too much for him. He wonders if they have anything else to wear. Someone asks why all the team leaders are wearing swimsuits. Lola explains that swimsuits are simply the most comfortable clothes for working on the beach. Tadashi says that they'll have different tasks on Earth now, so he's going to give them new clothes. He explains that leaving their skin uncovered could be dangerous. The girls agree with him. Asya asks him where to start and mentions that they could make glass. The main character thinks for a moment. He says they should grow a forest first. The girls are surprised and ask if he's serious. The sea around them is beautiful. Barry is surprised to learn that trees only grow because someone waters them. The main character says he isn't joking at all. In his mind, he decides he'll do the plowing, while Barry will handle planting and watering. He thinks to himself, if things turn out the way he predicted, then anyone could grow anything on the land he's plowed. The main character feels that everything is almost ready, right up to the edge of the forest. The girls come up to him and ask what's going on. He stops and says he wants to dig a well here. Barry replies that it's better to let her do it, since she has already dug a well on the island. The main character refuses and says he can handle it on his own. He believes that what he's looking for is somewhere around here. The girl looks confused. The hero throws the tool to the ground. The girl shouts out loud in surprise. The main character says it looks like he guessed right, and asks her to step aside. Suddenly, a strong jet of water bursts out from where Barry hit. Barry shouts in surprise. He tells Dasha that he smelled fresh water underground, which is why he hit that exact spot. He says he's glad everything was sorted out so quickly, and that he didn't have to dig a hole. The girl agrees, but admits she's not really sure what he means. She asks to take care of building the well herself because it's her job to help him. The guy agrees and says if she wants to do it, she can go ahead. He's already prepared all the materials, and they're right over there where he's pointing. He says that even though it's still early, he'll make lunch for them. Asha asks Lola to help him with the cooking. Lola is happy to agree. They are going to Kurukur. He feels really proud of himself because he caught a lot of things. Tadashi praises him and says he brought back many items. He licks his finger with some salt on it and thinks the salt turned out great. Lola asks him what she should do next. The main character asks for a little time to think, then tells her to bring the seaweed that Isolane left for him. He says he'll start making the broth, and she should soak the seaweed in a big pot. Lola smiles and says she understands. The girl walks quickly. Tadashi smiles to himself, thinking there's still plenty of time before lunch, so he doesn't need to hurry. Lola calls out loudly to the hero, letting him know the soup is almost ready. She looks at him with a happy smile. The girl smiles and notices Tadashi's table. She leans towards the main character, who is kneading something, and asks if he's baking bread. Tadashi happily says she guessed right. He explains that he heard you can make bread and cookies from shaffroot, so he decided to give it a try. The girl smiles and says she's already baked the bread, so he doesn't need to worry. The main character smiles back and agrees, but says he wants to learn how to bake bread himself. He suggests they bake it together next time. Lola happily agrees. She gets to work and starts kneading the dough. She puts a piece on the table and says that fruits are great for baking, but it's best to mix them with flour. The main character listens carefully, then says they'll need to ask Zelina to bring more fruit. The girl tells him not to worry. She'll handle everything. She points out that it's good they have salt because it makes the dough firmer. He agrees and says he's good at adding the right amount of salt. Together they put the dough in the oven and say that now, all that's left is to bake their future bread. When the bread is ready, it's taken out of the oven. The man notices that the bread looks different from what he's used to at home. He breaks off a piece and thinks that maybe this is just how it's supposed to be here. Next, it's time for the seafood soup. He takes out the seaweed and knows he needs to remove it before the soup starts to boil. He looks at the dish and says if he adds what Kururu found, it could turn out pretty interesting. When dinner is ready, all three girls are amazed by how good it tastes. One of them tries the dish and says it tastes great. Asha is surprised that Tadashi knows how to cook with seaweed and says she would love to try it too. They might even start to think that he is from the KL family as well. Lolo smiles and says she doesn't see him as a stranger either. The main character is happy to hear this. He then asks Karuru if he likes the bread, since it tastes so good because of the she fruit. Karuru grumbles cheerfully while eating the bread. The main character thanks the three girls for all their hard work today. He tells them he's made coffee using local fruits and asks them to give it a try. Asha is surprised because she's never tasted this kind of drink before, and she wants to know what coffee actually is. One of the girls shouts out that it tastes really bitter. Lolo says he really tried his best to make it for them, but maybe it's better if they just drink some water instead. She apologizes. The main character gets confused and says maybe he's the one who should apologize. He thinks to himself that the coffee tastes a lot like what he's used to in his own world. He can't figure out what he did wrong or where he made a mistake. Asha smiles and says the coffee is delicious and that she really likes it. The guy, feeling relieved, says he's glad to hear that and lets out a sigh. The girl asks him not to do it. The main character laughs and says he'll also show her how to make even better glassware today. She admits she feels embarrassed because this is all she can do to help. Asya and Tata S are working in the workshop and finally get the glass bottle. The main character says the work is done, holding it in their hand. The girl excitedly says it's beautiful, or that it's the best thing ever. She also shares that he even made a device for blowing glass. The main character laughs and says he only did it because he had a great teacher. He thinks about the gods and hopes that Vulcan and the others are doing well. He reminds himself to offer them some seafood one day. She says his firewood burns perfectly, and thanks to his skills, they'll be able to make the best glass ever. Asya tells Tadashi that if they get more glass, they'll be able to make more potion bottles. Tadashi says she understood everything right and asks her to make as many bottles as she can. The hero also asks her to make glass dishes, saying they're more beautiful and stronger than ceramic ones. The girl agrees. The hero realizes he needs a lot of elixir, so it's time to expand the fields of elixir grass. He also needs more vegetables for food, so he should plant another field with veggies. Tadashi asks Barry for help. He needs to get something done before sunset. The girl agrees to help him right away, without any hesitation. The hero thinks to himself, even though he has a lot to do, he actually enjoys this kind of life. He makes his own tools and dishes from things he finds around him. Tadashi thinks this is exactly how they wanted to live. Suddenly, Barry asks the man if they need to pick cotton and rubber today. Then she says she'll follow them. Lola tells the hero that if he wants to make thread and cloth, he'll need a spinning wheel and a loom, but making those things is really difficult. But then the girl says that she and Asiya can do a good job and make them themselves. Dasha agrees and adds that she'll help too, even if it means sewing with a needle. The hero plans to use cotton to make threads and fabrics because these products will be much better quality. Tadashi says he usually doesn't think about things like this, but he wants to make nice clothes for girls. That way they can save money on swimsuits. Suddenly, Barry notices something and turns around. She calls Tadashi over. They both see a ship coming towards them. Tadashi says it's Iceland and their friends on board. He feels happy and relieved that everyone is okay. Suddenly, more ships start to appear behind the first one. Tadashi is surprised to see there are so many of them. The ships are docked at the shore. The elves step onto land and start unloading their belongings. A girl named Erin runs up to Dasha and calls out his name. But the hero angrily reminds her that he has already asked her several times not to call him that. The girl sticks out her tongue and says she doesn't know anything. Aisling tells Tadashi that they have already come back. She also says they brought their harvest with them, and asks the hero to take a look. This really surprises Tadashi. The hero thought Iceland and others would only bring seeds, but in the end, he realized that a finished product is actually better. He looks at the baskets of food, and says that barley and hops are used for brewing beer. He uses sugar cane and palm nuts to make sugar and butter. The hero also finds some wheat and soybeans in the harvest. He thanks Iceland for these foods. The girl explains that they tried to grow them on the island, but it didn't work. The plants just wouldn't grow. The girl apologizes, saying their island isn't really suitable for certain crops. But the hero cuts her off and says that what the elves have brought is more than enough. He compliments them and adds that if there were any more types of crops, he wouldn't even know what to do with all of them. In Iceland, people say they sent almost everyone they could to help the hero in the field. In total, about 150 people showed up. The girl also mentions that they took some tools for making fabrics. The hero thanks the elf for these helpful items. In Iceland, people say that the heroine never doubted herself because she ran the whole country. That's why she always had every little detail carefully planned out. Tadashi thought that now he definitely needed to create the fields. But suddenly, Izurin turned to Asa and asked if anyone among them had ever had a close relationship with Tadashi. When the hero heard this, he froze in shock. Asura, feeling embarrassed, admits that none of them have ever tried anything like that before. The girl replies that she wouldn't have been upset if it did happen, because he's truly strong and a worthy man. In her opinion, it's only natural to want to be closer to someone like him. Tadashi wonders if the girl knows that he can hear everything. Then he thinks of a question to ask Iselin. He asks why there are so many people here. The boy says it doesn't bother him, but it is a bit confusing. Eileen explains that all these elves will help build the village, but she still thinks there won't be enough of them. The hero asks in surprise. The girl explains that they can only build the village if Tadashi agrees. The hero says it wouldn't be hard for him to stay and live here, but at first, he only came to get some food. He asks the girl if she really wants to build a fishing village here so they can have seafood. The girl replies that she doesn't want to do it because she plans to build a village here. Iselin says she's happy that the hero created a forest for them, so she asks if they can just start cutting down the forest and building the village right now. The hero is a bit surprised by this suggestion. He says that you can't use a freshly cut tree right away. It needs to dry first. Tadashi explains that this will take some time. He scolds the girl a little, since she knows this already. Deshu says that if he works hard, he can finish in 3 days. He also mentions that if they squeeze them tightly, the moisture will come out much faster. The girl says she didn't expect the guy to do it so quickly, but since he was blessed by the god of farming and by Kronos, she believed he must have some way to make it happen instantly. In Iceland, people say that when they returned, she was supposed to have firewood ready for them. That's why they brought carpentry tools with them. But then she opened her eyes and realized that everyone has their own limits. The hero doesn't understand what the girl means and calls out to her. Iceland turns around and says she wants to build a kingdom that Tadashi will rule. The girl says she wants Deshi to be king and wisely rule these lands. The hero is confused and doesn't understand what's going on. He asks the girl if she's not giving him too much credit. The girl replies that yes, she is, because she has Kronos' blessing too, not just his. Izarin says that maybe Tadashi is right, but most people still see this place as a prison, even though he managed to make the land fertile. The hero replies that it was partly luck, and he's not as great as the girl thinks. Tadashi asks the girl if they have a place where they can live freely, just like they did in their own kingdom. He doesn't understand why she wants to give up, and suggests that they could create a new kingdom together. The girl asks the hero what freedom really means. She agrees with what he says, but points out that he doesn't actually know what's outside of this place. The girl calls someone named Liza, and the hero watches her suspiciously. Suddenly, an elf woman appears without her right arm. Tadashi asks what happened to her. Isarune explains that Liza is a warrior who has served her family for a long time. She says the girl's parents were eaten by monsters from the Demon Lord's army. She lost her right arm herself while trying to escape. Isarin gives Liza an elixir, and the girl obediently drinks it. The hero watches everything happening with surprise. He notices that the girl's arm is starting to heal. He remembers hearing that the elixir is the best medicine in the world, but he never expected it could even regrow a lost limb. After being healed, the girl thanks Desha, saying that now she can faithfully serve Iselin again thanks to him. Iselin says she wants the hero to really understand. She explains that even if he treats his people well and has all kinds of blessings, there are still no medicines or food on the island. The girl says she can't rule or protect the island by herself. That's why she turned down being queen. Tadashi looks at Iselina with sadness in his eyes. The girl says she can only make the elixir, but she can't actually cure people. The hero asks if he will give the elves the ingredients for the elixir and some food. He also wonders if the girl will become queen again. Iselin says no. She explains that her elixir works so well only because it's made from herbs grown by Tadashi. Thanks to him, she's able to restore lost body parts. She says that everyone here, not just Liza, is alive only because the heroes brought them Alicia's herb. The girl hands her crown to Tadashi. She explains that the very first elf king, Ivalus, was once a tree. Over time, his body transformed. This crown is proof that he existed and is a symbol of the king's power. It has been passed down through generations. Iselin says that she and all the elves want Tadashi to become their king. But the hero politely refuses, explaining that he can't accept such an important offer. And the girl tells the hero not to worry because there are people on the island who would never want to leave. She hopes the hero can be a light of hope for those who do choose to leave, something she couldn't do herself. The main character asks Iselin if she really believes he can do it. She confidently says yes. She adds that each country's leader is called an apostle of God. Then she tells him that Tadashi is the best of them all. The hero believes that a blessing is a sign of strength. Iselin adds that none of the people calling themselves king are worth anything, including herself. Eren looks at Iceland with sadness and confusion. The girl shouts that Tadashi is different from everyone else. He has a good heart and is stronger than anyone. She says he has to become king so he can protect people like them. The hero looks at the girl with sadness. He agrees, but asks if he really has to wear the crown all the time. The girl is very happy to hear his answer. Iselin tells her people that she's giving up the throne and passing all her power to Tadashi. The girl puts a crown on the hero's head and tells everyone to welcome their new king. Everyone cheers for their new ruler. Tadashi thinks to himself that he has no idea what to do next. He feels lost and doesn't know how to lead his people. The young man shares that his grandfather on his mother's side gave him the name Dasha. He says when his grandfather chose this name, he believed that a boy with this name could make the world a better place. Tadashi used to think his grandpa was just making excuses for his past mistakes. But now, he realizes that in this world, it really is worth trying. The hero takes off his crown and says he doesn't need it anymore. The girl picks up the crown and asks him where he's going now. Dasha replies that he needs to plow a new field. Also, now there are more people, so they need more grass. The young man adds that even after becoming king, there are still some things only he can do himself. The hero says that the girl knows a king must always care for his people. The girl is happy with Tadashi's answer. The hero believes that when you're building a village from scratch, it's important to place the fields in the right spot so you can get the biggest harvest possible. Dashi speaks to his people and tells them that now, since Isolane is no longer queen, all elves should come to him with any needs or problems. The elves agree. Everyone happily gets to work right away. Tadashi tells Iselin that he didn't realize she expected so much from him. The girl doesn't understand what he means. The young man says it's nothing important and asks her not to worry about it. Then Exiled and Dwarf point out a newly built house to the hero. The hero is surprised by how big this new building is. He takes a good look at the building, praises the glass window, and points out how quickly the elves put this place together. Exiled says they don't think construction will keep going this fast. But for Tadashi, the house was built super quickly because he is the king of the elves. The girl tells the guy he should thank the carpenters who built this house. The guy looks at the workers, feeling confused. He thinks that among those who left the island, there were more women than men. Tadashi takes a moment to gather his thoughts. He thanks the workers, who are beaming with happiness. The head carpenter, Spike, says it's too soon to thank them. He suggests they should check out the house from the inside and gently nudges the boy to go in. Tadashi is completely amazed. Spike is happy that the new king likes everything in the house. Tadashi thinks he did a perfect job. The boards look flawless, and the nails are hammered in so neatly you can barely see them. The hero asks the master what materials he's missing. The master replies that they have to save on iron because they don't have enough. The hero says that as soon as he finishes working in the fields, he'll start working with iron. He explains that magic iron is better than regular iron. Spike is very grateful to the new king and says she's counting on him. Tadashi realizes that the iron supplies are running low, so he needs to come up with a smart solution. At that moment, his eyes land on the fancy bed in the room. The hero wonders why the bed is so huge. Exiled explains that a big, soft mattress is a sign of royal blood, but the hero says that's not what he meant at all. Tadashi asks if the bed isn't too big for just one person. Exiled then remembers, oh right, the hero always sleeps alone. Tadashi can't understand how anyone could forget something like that. It makes him uneasy that everyone else is sleeping so soundly. Exiled asks who she can choose as her hero. Tadashi is confused and doesn't understand what she means. She says it seems like the hero didn't like Asha or the others, so she guesses that Tadashi prefers slimmer girls. The hero senses that something is wrong and asks Exiled to slow down. She doesn't understand what's going on and thinks he just wants to invite a few more girls over. Tadashi says no and asks what nonsense the girl is talking about. Exiled tells him it's not nonsense at all, and she doesn't even understand why he's so angry. The girl says that now the hero is a king, he needs concubines. Tadashi drifts off into his daydreams. But suddenly he realizes what Exiled is planning. Eren comes in and says the hero wasn't able to talk the former queen out of this idea. She says that Eileen never wastes time. The hero asks someone to explain what's actually going on. Eileen answers that Tadashi doesn't need to worry about anything. She says that elves and beastmen really value relationships with kings, and right now there are almost no men left among them. The hero gets annoyed and insists that there are no men at all. The girl says that thanks to the hero, her people no longer have problems with housing or food. So now she's thinking about starting a family. The hero asks if they hate people. Exiled replies that Tadashi is different from everyone else. She also explains that elves usually pass on their traits to their children. So, when an elf and a human have a baby, it often looks more like an elf. She reassures the hero and tells him there's nothing to worry about. The hero is surprised because he always imagined elves very differently. Eileen believes that even if they have a child, the child will be happy because it will grow up in a loving family. She also says they need to rebuild their family, since the war took so many of their loved ones. Exiled is sure that she's the best match for Tadashi. She suggests that he should first befriend Eren, the leader of the Beastkin, and then she offers to introduce him to Liza. But the hero says he doesn't really know her and doesn't plan on getting closer to her. Exiled is surprised. She says that Tadashi is different from other people. Elves have always heard that men need to have a girl by their side. The hero replies that it's true, but he thinks feelings shouldn't be ignored. Exiled says that elves have their own special mating season. Also, humans and elves have almost the same bodies, so there shouldn't be any issues. She explains that if Tadashi wants to have children, he should get close to an elf during this time. The hero is upset about Exiled's behavior. He says that Liza is a royal guard, so she can share a bed with him, but he won't do anything with her at night. Then Exiled asks, "But what about Eren?" Eren asks if she can also get in line. Then he says that Exiled is actually the best choice for this role. The girl hesitantly says she doesn't think she's Dasha's type. Eren tells Izarin she's just confused because things didn't work out last time. He encourages the former elf queen to be more confident in herself. Then the hero understands that this was the last time. He doesn't think anyone did it on purpose. After that, Tadashi comes to his senses and starts yelling at Eren, telling him not to call him master. The girl asks the hero if she can call him king, but she doesn't think it will affect Tadashi's reaction. The boy agrees, but then asks why Eren just can't use his real name, like Exiled does. The girl says that Exiled is an exception. If she calls the hero by just his name, it could affect his reputation. The hero doesn't understand. Eren is also a ruler, but she doesn't call him by name. She just calls him master. Aaron says that bee people live in groups and their society is very organized. She also feels safer when there's someone stronger nearby. She says the gods have blessed her, but her power isn't helping her people survive the war. Aaron notices she looks very tired and feels just like Exiled did when she decided to give up her power. Aaron says that when she first met the hero, she thought it would be easy to handle him and that it would make her feel better. She admits these were her honest thoughts at the time. Suddenly, the girl snaps back to reality, apologizes to the hero, and explains that she just got distracted, so he shouldn't pay any attention to her. Didashi can't believe that Aaron went through the same thing as Isolane. He thinks the girl is still just a child, but her life is already so hard. The heroine tells Aaron there's no need to apologize. He reassures her she can always count on him. Aaron is really happy. Tadashi says he'll do everything he can. Tears well up in the girl's eyes. She hugs the hero around the neck, full of gratitude. The hero can hardly believe that Aaron also wants to protect someone. Aaron shouts to Isolani that she's lucky. She replies that today the hero will probably pick her. To Dasha, he calls out that he didn't mean anything bad. Aaron says the hero just needs to hang in there. Tadashi gets a bit annoyed, but he also thinks to himself that Aaron's words actually made things better. A new day begins. The scene shifts to the hero's room, where he and Liza step out together. Suddenly, Aaron jumps out from around the corner and cheerfully greets them with a loud, "Good morning!" He hands them a mug with a morning drink. Tadashi jokes that in Iceland, they have a really funny sleeping position. The hero decided to let the girl have the spot on the bed. Aaron says that if she hadn't been so brave, he would have done the same thing. The hero says that it was Aaron who was following Liz, but the girl replies that she's already used to it. Nidashi thinks to himself that he was sure he could handle anything, but Iceland still managed to knock him out of the race. After a while, Iceland wakes up too. The hero turns away from her, looking embarrassed, and says they should try again today. The girl doesn't understand what's going on. The heroes head out to the fields. Tadashi says they finished harvesting the main wheat for bread yesterday. Next on their list are sugarcane, barley, and hops. Eilman understands why they need reeds, but he has no idea what to do with so much barley and hops. Tadashi explains that they're going to use them to brew beer. Isolane asks again. When Deshi wonders if the girl really doesn't know anything about beer, she explains that on their island they used to brew barley wine without hops. They used hops as a medicinal plant instead. The girl says the hero figured out that the earliest types of barley wine didn't use hops. The hero explains that this wine is different from water because it doesn't spoil, so people took it with them on trips. Tadashi then asks if its taste has changed. The hero thinks about making a barley wine drink for the gods who have been so kind to him. He wants this drink to be as delicious as possible. Tadashi asks Islin if there's anyone here who really knows how to brew beer. The girl says yes, there's someone with the same blessing as the hero. Tadashi asks her to introduce them. This person turns out to be a young woman named Merle. She works as a cook. She listens carefully to the main character, says she understands everything, and promises to help. Tadashi thanks her. The hero says he's already prepared the barrels, so Merle can use them. Then Tadashi heads off to the blacksmith. The girl asks him to trust her. The hero walks up to the blacksmith. He enters her tent and asks Asya if she has finished making the nails. Asya says yes and adds that she's also fixed the tools. The hero paused to think, and the girl said that if the tools work too fast, they might break. Tadashi thinks that melting down iron every time is a big waste. He wishes he could repair parts using magic steel, but they hardly have any of it. The hero calls Karura. When the creature appears, Tadashi says he needs its legs. Karura is happy to be called and easily gives the hero what he needs. Tadashi realizes that Kuru is leading them straight to the forest where the steel is hidden. He tells the creature that he needs to refill their water supplies and asks it to follow the river. The heroine is flying along the river, collecting water, and at the same time, she catches a special fish called the devil salmon. The story moves to the northern forest. The hero starts chopping down trees, trying to make his way to the nearest mountain. He tells Carrera that they need to keep moving toward it. At last, the mountain comes into view. Tadashi swings with all his might, shouts, "Dig!" and hits the mountain. The blow sends rocks flying everywhere. The hero thinks it's a pretty good harvest, but says this sack is a trick. He turns to Quirur and says they're done here, so it's time to head back. They come back to the village. Asya is happy to be here again. The man says he brought more food and fuel. He pours out everything he brought in front of the girl, and she is really surprised. She asks what's going on, and Tadashi says he thought they were already done. Asya says the hero has given too much. Asya says she can't handle all the work in the forge by herself. She asks for someone to help her and turns to Tadashi, asking him to take care of it. Tadashi isn't surprised by her request. Tadashi works at the forge. He believes everything is ready now, and he can start working as a carpenter. The hero brings the tool to Ship. She's really happy with it and calls it amazing. Ship handles the new tool with no trouble at all. Tadashi explains that this tool is called a planer. He says it works really well. Spike says the screws you brought work even better than nails. This makes everything even more effective. The Beastman tells everyone to do everything for the king. Everyone agrees with this idea. Tadashi thinks they can make all sorts of things using the power of the thorn. Now he's wondering what to do next. Suddenly, Asya calls out to Tadashi. He turns when he hears her. She tells him that relaxing has become boring. He's confused and doesn't really get what she means. Asya asks him to take a look around. The girl shows that Iceland, which is in charge of the whole project, is already completely exhausted. Finally, Tadashi understands what Asia has been talking about. The hero thinks that the courage he showed at work in his previous life didn't really help his team at all. Asya asks the main character if she can take a break. He says yes. The hero sits and slowly enjoys his drink. Suddenly, Kururu swims up to him. The creature has a shrimp in its mouth. Tadashi offers to cook it for him. The hero starts to build a fire, but suddenly he notices a strange plant nearby. He pauses to think about it, and out of nowhere, an interesting idea pops into his head. Asha looks like a real heroine. She asks Tadashi again what he's making. He answers that it's liquid soap. He mixed coconut oil, baked seaweed, and a bit of salt, and now he just needs to let the mixture sit for a while. The girl really likes the soap that the main character made. She thinks it smells amazing. Tadashi jokes that with soap like this you just want to go take a bath right away. The story moves to a large bathroom. The hero thinks to himself that even though he did a lot of work, everything was easier than he expected. Suddenly, the hero hears a noise behind him and turns around. Eren comes running up. The girl looks surprised when she sees the bathtub. The hero offers her to try it out. The girl pulls the lever and water starts to flow. Tadashi shows the Beastmen leader how the shower works. Eri really likes it. She happily stands under the stream of water. The girl asks how this device works. The hero explains that he poured a lot of very hot water into it. Because the water at the top is higher, it simply flows down on its own. Tadashi believes the most important thing is to clearly know what you want, because once you do, you can achieve almost anything. The hero says that's it for today and suggests everyone relax in the bath. Since they're already in swimsuits, Tadashi says they can just go in right away. Eren can't wait and promises to call the others. The hero goes down into the water and relaxes. He thinks everything around him must be made of cypress wood because it smells so nice. He remembers he hasn't had a bath in a long time and believes that now he'll finally feel alive again. Suddenly, he hears some noises and turns his head. He freezes in shock. A group of girls without swimsuits walk into the bathroom. Tadashi asks where their bathrooms are. Eren tells her she's better off without him. Izzy explains she thought this would be a good chance for everyone to get to know each other better. She also says that the hero said it himself. Tadashi disagrees and explains that he actually meant something completely different. Eren takes off the hero's underwear, and the hero starts shouting in embarrassment. Dasha asks Eren to stop and not take away her underwear. The girl says she finds all of this really boring. Eren pulls the towel away from Isolane. The main character says the girl is getting too reckless, and if she keeps acting like this, she might end up without any food soon. When Eren heard these words, he quickly apologized. Tadashi told her to go wash her face. Suddenly, a girl walked past the hero. It turned out to be Liza. She apologized to the hero for bothering him. Then, she asked him not to be mad at Eren. Liza mentioned that the hero had seemed really tense all this time. Tadashi says he isn't angry with her because she's still a child. He thinks it was hard for Lizzie. The people from the principality, the elf slaves, and the beastmen were all there. He hoped they hadn't been rude or made fun of anyone. Liza said everything went smoothly, and their leader was actually a woman. Tadashi was surprised to learn that the commander of the national army was a woman. He had assumed this was just a small border principality. Liza says that at first they weren't interested in the Flounder Islands at all. They just took over these islands so they could have a good spot to attack the Demon Kingdom from the other side. She says that they had their own troops, so they fought back bravely. But the enemy had a woman commander who was extremely cruel. The girl says that even though the commander was from the royal family, she herself went to the front lines and took out several soldiers with a single strike. Liza explains that this was when she lost her hand. Dasha finds the story really fascinating and thinks that Liza must have some kind of special protection from higher powers. He's sure he wouldn't want to mess with them if he could avoid it. Lisa said the duchy needs to feed its army, so she quickly agreed to become the duchy's treasurer and supply them with food in exchange for safety guarantees for her people. Tadashi thinks that maybe the Duke wanted to take away the elves' weapons, force them to pay huge taxes, and turn them into slaves. He believes this is a terrible and disgusting way to treat anyone. Liza asks if she can ask the hero a question. Tadashi says yes. The girl moves closer and leans in towards the hero's ear. She asks how the hero managed to stay around the girl. He looks at her awkwardly, and she quickly apologizes, realizing her words might have hurt him. Liza says she wonders how any guy could even stand being around Lady Exiled, let alone someone like her. Tadashi answers that this girl is also nice and attractive. Liza thanks Dasha for the compliment, saying it's the first time a man has said something like that to her, and admits it makes her really happy. The guy glances at her shyly. Suddenly, he gets an idea. Tadashi tells Liza to set some boundaries, to draw a line. The girl looks at him, confused and unsure what he means. The hero says that when the beer is ready, he wants to throw a party to make an offering to the gods. He also suggests having a Shinto wedding ceremony. The girl started thinking about the wedding ceremony, especially the Hatsugana ritual. The hero asked her if this really was an elf tradition. Liza explains that during the spring festival, girls give flowers to the boy they love when they reach a certain age. If the boy accepts the flowers, it means they are now engaged. Lisa says that when they were under control, they didn't have real freedom, and that's why they fought for their right to live. The hero says that, from what Liza told him, he realized that in her culture, it's normal for women to propose. Tadashi thinks this tradition is the reason why people in Iceland are so proactive. Liza asks what kind of wedding the hero would like. Tadashi says she would look great in a wedding cake dress, a beautiful outfit, and there definitely has to be an exchange of rings. Liza laughs and says that sounds like a pretty big celebration. Doji really thinks so. He believes that if he and Iceland are planning to get engaged, they'll need wedding dresses, have to make rings, and decide what kind of cake to have. The hero seriously thought about it. Then, he and Lisa hear a voice behind them and turn around. It's Erin. She asks if Lisa is having a private talk with the king. Lisa answers that Tadashi plans to marry all of them. When they heard that, all the girls turned to look at the hero. Tadashi explains that he never promised to marry all of them. Then he realizes that no one will probably listen to him right now. He thinks the commotion will start again soon. The next day, the hero decides that getting ready for the wedding is now the top priority. Tadashi has already asked the men to make some alcohol, and he's put Loli, the seamstress, in charge of the bride's dress. The hero realizes he now has to take care of the wedding rings and the cake, but he still has no idea what to make the cake from or where to find the precious stones. Suddenly, Asya calls out to him. She shouts that something has happened. The hero suggests to the girl that they take a short break. Asa replies that this isn't the right time to rest. The girl asks the hero to take a look at what happened. The hero says these are diamonds, rubies, and even sapphires. Then the girl explains that they've gotten mixed up with the magical minerals the hero had. Tadashi remembers bringing materials to the blacksmith. He used to think that magical minerals couldn't be mixed with anything else, but it looks like he was wrong. Tadashi says he's glad that at least Asha found them, because he was worried about the rings. Then Asha turns to him and asks if he can trust her to make the rings. Tadashi agrees right away, saying he trusts her completely. Asya thanks him for believing in her, and promises to do everything with great care and pride. Tadashi thinks they've sorted out the rings, so now it's time to move on to the cake. He starts to wonder how they'll find milk and eggs since they don't have any, and where they could get the right animals for that. The hero stands there, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, Kurururu flies over to him. Tadashi asks what Kurururu wants. The creature picks Tadashi up, puts him on its back and carries him away. Tadashi asks the animal where it is taking him. They are already getting close to the forest. He turns to Kurururu and asks if it's safe to go this far into the woods. But suddenly, the animal stops. Tadashi says they've gone too deep into the forest. Kururu starts growling. The hero doesn't understand what's happening, but then he feels like someone is out there. Fear spreads across his face. He sees lots of cows and roosters in front of him. Tadashi sits on his karura and calls out loudly to the animals. He offers to feed them. The beast ignores Desha's offer. Suddenly, Kororo jumps in, barking furiously at them. All the animals turn to look at him in fear. Dasha thinks these wild animals look like babies, and she wants to tame them. The main character repeats his suggestion. He says he'll show the animals a place with better food and water, and in return they'll give him eggs and milk. Kuru growls at the animals again, and they get scared. But now they are obedient and ready to follow Dasha. The hero sits on Kurururu and leads the animals, saying that with a bit of effort, taming them is actually easy. Kurururu growls happily in agreement. The hero returns to the village. He believes that farming is a proper job for a person, and raising livestock is definitely part of agriculture. Suddenly, Erin and Exiled come up to the hero. Exiled says she heard about the first flower ceremony, so she brought some seeds. But then something catches her attention and she asks, "What is that?" The hero thanks everyone who waited in line for the seeds and explains that the barn and chicken coop are perfect places for planting them. He recommends planting the flower seeds as soon as possible. Aaron tells Iselina that these chickens and cows look like they have a lot of meat on them. Iselina replies that it's because they are special devil cows and devil chickens, and that these are real animals. Aaron asks if it's possible to tame demonic cows and chickens. Iceland replies that it's impossible. You can't tame people or magical creatures. Aaron focuses her eyes on the painting ahead. Tadashi gently pats the demon chicken on the head and tells it that it's time to lay some tasty eggs for them. The chicken looks like it's about to cry. Aaron says the demon beast is crying. Tadashi also notices that in the past, legendary demon monsters were guarded by Fenrir. Islin explains this is because those creatures were controlled by force, not tamed gently. Aaron paused to think and asked if controlling demonic beasts counts as a fighting skill. Isolani didn't quite understand what he meant. Aaron explains that they keep more than 30 terrifying demon-like beasts here. So, if the prince's army ever attacks, these creatures can be used to help defend the place. Finally, Iceloon understands what the beast folk leader is talking about and says they need to be careful. Suddenly, the hero calls out to Aaron and Iceland. He asks them to grab the eggs and milk, saying there's plenty and everything looks delicious. The girls stand there, looking a bit confused. Tadashi says that if they try to tame the demon beasts now, things will be easier for them in the future. The girls realize these creatures are nowhere near being tamed. Then Lola and Asha arrive and call Tadashi. Lola says she has made outfits for the wedding ceremony. She tells everyone that the wedding dress turned out really beautiful. Tadashi says he never doubted her. He knew she could do it. Then Asya turns to him and tells him she chose a sapphire for the engagement ring. He really likes the ring, and happily says he was right to trust her. The girls are excited and happy. Lola says they need to start mass production as soon as possible. Asya adds that she still needs to make rings in the right size. The hero stops them and says they should try the bread first. The girls are surprised. Maru explains that she wanted to test the baked goods, so she decided to start with the bread. She brings out freshly baked bread. It all looks really delicious. Then the main character draws attention to himself and says, "That's not all." He reveals the first batch of alcohol. Loa says she confused it with unfiltered ale. She thinks this beer tastes cold and good. Tadashi adds that light beer is best enjoyed chilled. It's cold because of the magic of life. Asya says this alcohol is really strong. Tadashi thinks that finally, the world's magic and heavenly protection feel real. The girls are drinking beer with bread. The hero says that with simple magic, you can heat or cool your food. But using life magic makes cooking incredibly easy. Then the hero thinks, if the oven works, he can bake a pie, then make some fresh cream and butter. At this moment, Maru turns to Tadashi. She says the hero is kind to everyone, no matter what, but wonders if someone like her could ever really get married. The hero is totally shocked because he doesn't remember anyone ever saying something like that. Tadashi asks the girl if she wants to marry him, but Maru says she has something else to say. She admits that she already has a child and asks if he's okay with that. Tadashi freezes in shock. He's half human and now a father at just 28 years old. Her husband, Cornell, died earlier during the war with the principality. The girl says she noticed that the hero was unhappy, but she's still proud of her man. Then Dasha says they should remember the great and brave man beast. She adds that she heard he was truly heroic in his final moments. Suddenly, a little girl runs into the room. The hero asks if she's really Maru's daughter. The girl nods and says her name is Peta. She hugs her mom. The hero thinks that Mara's husband died in the war. Now she's a mother left on her own with a little child. The hero says that Mara will probably get married again soon, even though her first husband was a really good man. The girl says that if she marries the man who saved the island, her husband will be happy. She adds that she'll have to raise her daughter and have more children. The hero picks up a glass from the table. Tadashi drinks his glass in one go. Then he says he realizes what they need to do. They should get married. The main character turns to Petya and says she can call him dad now. The girl agrees to the hero's proposal, and Maru thanks him for allowing her daughter to call him dad. The hero adds that after the ceremony, the girl can call him by his first name. The girl agrees to this too. Tadashi thinks this was exactly the right thing to do. The wedding day is coming soon. Tadashi says everything is ready for the celebration. The whole village community, about 100 people, will easily fit in the small town. Tadashi says they have a huge variety of dishes. There's wild vegetable salad, freshly baked bread, spicy seafood soup, tender filet steak, and a peach wedding cake. Suddenly, Iselan calls out to the hero. He turns around and sees a crowd of girls in wedding dresses behind him. They tell him they're ready. Tadashi looks at them, surprised and a bit confused. The hero realizes that he forgot to ask how many people would come, and he never expected that he'd end up marrying all 7 of them. Izarin asks the hero if something is wrong. Tadashi says no. In his mind, he wonders if marrying everyone at once is really the right thing to do. But he decides to accept it as a local island tradition. Barry says that Tadashi is already very generous. She adds that even if the hero gets closer to someone else, he will still get married, and it doesn't really matter who it is. Tadashi looks at her, a bit surprised. He says that's not true at all. The main character asks them not to talk about him possibly getting married. The girls reply that people are already spreading those rumors. The hero thinks about how much they've already done by helping each other, and even if it had to be this way, he still feels happy about it. Isolane suggests exchanging vows. The hero agrees, but wants to ask for the god's blessing first, and then start celebrating. Suddenly a bright light appears out of nowhere. The heroes meet the gods. Kronos, the god of agriculture, greets the hero and says he looks healthy. Vulcan, the god of blacksmiths, offers him a drink. The girls look at the gods in surprise, while Tadashi agrees with Vulcan, saying that thanks to them, he's made a lot more friends. The volcano says he's been waiting for this day for a long time and he really likes everything. The gods try the alcohol that Tadashi made. The volcano is the first to taste it and says it's amazing. Perono says that barking and acting rude are terrible, while Vulcan replies that drinking is disgraceful. Suddenly they lock eyes and turn their attention to the hero. She asks who those 2 are. Tadashi answers that they are deities. He explains that he left an offering at the altar, so the deities came to eat. The girl shouts that this is not normal at all. The hero realizes there's been another misunderstanding. The girls are surprised when they realize the gods are already here. The hero explains that it's rare for most people to actually see gods come down to earth. He starts to tell them that if you make an offering, the gods will come themselves to try it. The girls look at Tadashi in confusion. He realizes they barely understood anything. Suddenly, Kronos shifts his gaze to the newly arrived gods. He turns to Mia and Helka Barrett and says it's not polite to show up looking like that since Tadashi worked so hard to cook. Mia, the goddess of wisdom, says that at least Kronos had a choice, to come or not. Helkabar, the god of heroism, adds that they have a rule. They don't support individual resurrections. Heronis says that the god of heroism is being stubborn again. He wonders if it's the armor that makes him so harsh. Chelkabars gets angry and snaps, "So what?" 2 gods got into an argument. Tadashi steps in and tries to help them make peace. He says that gods work hard, so they should have a good meal. The god of heroism tastes the first dish. He's amazed by the incredible flavor. Tadashi explains that it's a soup made with seaweed and other seafood. The forecast says that Tadashi's dishes often get 7 stars from the patron of agriculture. Mia looks at the oxtail soup and says that in their time, such fancy dishes made by believers really impress people. Kronos calls the goddess of healing and tells her that they have already done a lot for her, so now it's her turn to come and give it a try too. The healing goddess Alicia says she didn't do anything. Tadashi turns to her and sincerely thanks her for giving them the healing herb. The goddess says the hero did everything on his own. But since he insists, she agrees with him. Tadashi is surprised that the goddess suddenly started eating meat. He was surprised to see Alicia eating meat. Suddenly, Aislinn turns to the goddess of healing and says that she always looks after them. Alicia looks surprised. Aislinn asks if something is bothering the goddess. Alicia shakes her head and says that it's actually Aislinn who truly believes in her. She asks the elf to focus on this. Isolane feels very happy to hear such words from the goddess of healing. Kronos asks Tadashi if people ever call him the god monster Oda. Tadashi repeats the question, unsure he heard right. Kronos goes on to explain that this god also looks after magical beasts. Tadashi says that Kuru came to bring Mr. Oda. He admits that he completely forgot about it. He hits the little dragon figure, and suddenly a strange monster god called Odd appears in front of him. Tadashi asks Kronos what Mr. Odd usually eats. Kronos says that Odd eats everything in sight. You just have to feed him even more. The hero gives away his portion of the dish. He tries it carefully at first, but soon finishes every last bite. This surprises him. Tadashi asks Mari if she has already ordered more. She says yes. Then Vulcan tells the hero that the alcohol is finished and asks him to bring another full barrel. The hero promises that everything will be fine now. The gods are having fun and enjoying delicious food. Tadashi suggests to Kronos that they should have a wedding ceremony since everyone is together. But Kronos replies that he's just happy as things are. The hero says they need to make sure that Mr. Kronos and everyone they care about are married. Kronos says he is the god of agriculture and promises a rich harvest and many children. He is sure he is the right choice to be the god who witnesses weddings and that he can be trusted. Kronos begins the ceremony. Tadashi is quietly relieved that at least Mr. Kronos isn't drunk this time. The wedding ceremony is about to begin. The main character explains that there's a special tradition on the island called the first flower ceremony. But for the local people, this is the first time they're seeing a real wedding. Tadashi tells Kronso that now they will say their vows, exchange rings, and give each other lily flowers. Pronov said that in their world, having more than one wife is common, but he has never seen a wedding like this before. He mentions that it really reminds him of Tadashi. Tadashi is surprised by what he hears. Pronov suggests that the hero say the oath in the temple, and he agrees. Suddenly, someone unexpectedly calls out to him. His 7 brides asked him to accept flowers from them. Feeling a bit shy, the hero politely asks them to come up one at a time. He puts the ring on each girl's finger one by one. Every girl is thrilled. Kronos says this is a truly happy marriage. He wishes the couple a good and prosperous future. The hero thanks him for his kind words. Kronos scolds the other gods for not preparing any wedding gifts for Tadashi and his friends. Vulcan doesn't understand what kind of present they were supposed to get. Pronto says this might be a new star that will become a guardian in the sky. But Mia thinks the god of agriculture is just talking nonsense. Chrono accuses her of being greedy, but she explains that giving a gift to Tadashi would upset the balance in the human world. Alicia agrees with Chrono. She suggests giving each of the hero's brides a star as a gift. Iceland is overjoyed and can't stop smiling. Mia says she doesn't like getting gifts like this. Kronos replies that she's the only one who hasn't tried these treats yet. Mia then turns to Tadashi. She says she has ordered her most loyal and talented merchants to come here. The hero thanks her for this generous gift, but deep down he suspects that these merchants will probably come from the border regions. Then Aaron shows up. Tadashi asks her if she got the present. She says yes, and adds that it came from the god hero, Mr. Helka Barris. The hero says he's not going to marry Aaron. She claims his desires have become inappropriate. He keeps refusing in every possible way. The girl says she's just joking and that it's too early to see the hero that way. But she admits she'll end up thinking about it later, even if she doesn't want to. Dashi thinks to himself that he hasn't said anything about it yet, and also that having 7 wives won't be easy. Suddenly, he hears people shouting. Iceland says she's happy she got to marry him. All the other girls also say they are happy too. The hero replies that he is just as happy as they are. He says that before, he never even thought about getting married. The hero wondered what would happen if he stayed alone forever. But in this world, which is so different from his own, he's not alone. A girl whispers, "Isn't it amazing that a king can make the gods come down to earth?" Others reply that it's not surprising at all, because everyone's eyes look the same way, and others have also received blessings. It's already become an old legend. Dasha is often called the main king, respected even by the gods. The girls also joke that he's a great cook, so it's no surprise that deities love to visit him. Tadashi thinks that very soon, this village won't belong to anyone, and will become sacred. He believes it's better to work on this land than to live in uncertainty. That's how the legend of Tadashi, the king of food, began. The wedding celebration lasted all night without a break. As a joke, Ilan asked the girls to line up by the size of their breasts, from smallest to largest. Lisa asks the girl if it's okay that her breasts are small. She wonders if there are any rivals for her here. Lisa says that everyone likes different things, and for example, Tadashi isn't interested in that. The hero thinks the girls are arguing about who should go first and can't agree. So he says that everyone is tired after a long day and it's time to get some rest. The girls absolutely refuse to go to sleep. Suddenly, Maru turns to Tadashi and asks him a question. She wants to know if he has any experience with this kind of thing. Tadashi, feeling confused, asks her what exactly she means. The girl says that no one else has experience, so things might get tough. The hero really feels the power of her words. Daishi suggests to Mari that they should tell everyone about it, and she thinks that's a great idea. She also mentions she needs a partner to help study the materials. The hero looks at her, surprised. He asks again, just to make sure he heard her right. Tadashi says it's really a shame. He's sure that even if he meets another girl, there will never be anyone else quite like her. Maru says she can offer a ship. She also mentions the girl, who is half beast like him and about his age. The hero starts to suspect that Maru wants them to get to know each other better. Spike says she can handle everything herself. She tells the hero that he might even think she's not around at all. The hero thinks this is a fair compromise. He agrees, and Mara asks him not to overdo it and to trust her. Spike says he's glad to meet him. The next morning, the hero asks Maru what her plan is now. The girl asks if she can say something. Tadashi says yes. She tells him that everything is fine, maybe even too good. Maru says the test was a success, but now Tadashi is in danger. The main character doesn't understand what she means. Maru warns the hero that he's taking a big risk. She tells him that if he lets his guard down, his partner might kill him. Tadashi thinks it's all because the god of agriculture blessed her with the physical strength of 7 people. He thinks that now, one way or another, he has to move on and get to the royal garden. Migrants from the Kanbar archipelago have started arriving in large numbers to the village of the descendants of the gods. The population of the Tadashi kingdom is growing quickly. News about this rapid increase has already reached the Frontrunner district. The story now takes us to the capital of the Frontrunner Century district. This area was started by 100 soldiers and 1 brave leader, and over time, it grew into a powerful nation with a large army. Matilda von Frontrunner is the only daughter of the ruler of Frontrunner County. She sits at a table surrounded by different papers. Matilda feels really bored reading all these reports, but she has no choice. Her father asked her to handle this task. A girl sits quietly, lost in her thoughts. Suddenly a man named Ogun von Fontaine enters the room. He turns towards her, and she lifts her eyes to meet his gaze. He says he's here to report some suspicious activity in the Hanbar archipelago. The girl asks if they're planning to build an important base for an attack there, and wants to know what's actually going on. Ochin says that according to stories, they can't even provide half of the archipelago's people with everything they need. He says that if taxes stay high, people might start leaving in large numbers. This problem needs to be fixed quickly. Matilda tells them to leave them alone. The man wants to argue, but the girl asks him to call the commander-in-chief. Ojin adds that it's not a good idea to disrespect someone like him. OJN reminds the commander again that there are still people left in the country, so every decision should be carefully considered. The girl replies that their counterattack plan is almost ready. She adds that there's no need to check the situation on the island anymore. Matilda apologizes to him and admits she was too harsh. Then she looks out the window at the city. The girl believes that the most important thing right now is to defeat the Magic King. A gentle breeze blows at her back. Matilda thinks that if she doesn't attack now, she could lose her country. The girl is sure that they will move forward and win. She only believes in this outcome and thinks there is no other way. The scene moves to the Divine Village, out in the fields. Tadashi is working there, thinking about how more than 5,000 people have already arrived from the island, and every day, even more come. He thinks they already have a lot of land, but no matter how much they expand their fields, it never seems to be enough. Suddenly, he hears someone calling his name. It was Isolane riding toward Kururu. She was shouting that something bad had happened. The hero asked her what was wrong. Isolane says that new candidates for resettlement have arrived. The hero asks, "Is there something wrong with that?" The girl says that crowds of dwarves and cat spirits keep coming here one after another. She explains that this is a very serious matter. Suddenly, a girl appears near Kuru. Tadashi asks Iceland if she can introduce them. The girl fully reveals herself and asks the hero if he is just like Dashi the farmer, the king of this country. The hero asks the girl who she is. Suddenly, Iceland interrupts their conversation. She says that he is a traitor, and the leader of a caravan of cat demon people. A cheerful girl greets you warmly and says she's happy to meet you. She introduces herself as Shinku, the head of a trade caravan with cute cat ears. Islea notices that this is quite an interesting name for a trading caravan. The hero says that cat demons belong to the feline family. Shinku says it's easier for customers to remember that way. Their logo is a cute cat with ears and a tail that everyone loves. The girl asks if the hero feels like he was just born again. She believes that the goddess Mia brought him together with the believers. She says the hero lit up the area, built a village, and plowed a field all in a moment. That's why she thought he must have been reborn. Shinku asks if she can explore these places later. The hero says yes, she can, but he adds that he still needs to meet with the dwarves. Iceland offers to help out. She's ready to go with Cinco while the main hero meets with the gnomes. Tadashi agrees and says he trusts her. The main character jumps onto Kururu and tells Gaz not to wait for him too long, because he's heading to the dwarves. The hero walks up to the spot and really does see the dwarves ahead. He comes closer to them. One of the dwarves calls out loudly and asks if he is King Tadashi. The hero says yes, and then asks if this dwarf is the leader of the group. The dwarf nods and says he's from the Grand Duchy of Frontrain. His name is Ovarin, and he leads the group of dwarves. Ashi said that luckily they have plenty of land, so the dwarves can easily live together with them. He also mentioned he can grow more trees and food whenever needed, so the dwarves can settle in the mountains near the mines, close to the village. The hero says that in the mountains you can find not only magical ore but also precious gems. Overnon asks if Tadashi is really allowed to share such important information. The hero says it was one of Mr. Barkin's instructions, so he thinks he can trust her. When the dwarf heard this, he started crying tears of joy. He called the hero a truly generous person. The dwarf promised to serve King Tadashi with all his strength for the rest of his life. The hero just smiled and said the dwarf was exaggerating a bit. Tadashi reaches out his hand and suggests they head to the mines as soon as possible. He says that now, he and the dwarves are brothers in arms. The dwarf shakes his hand and promises to stand by his side. The hero thinks there will be a mining village in the north, owned by Oberon and other dwarves. He plans to supply them with everything they need. In the south, 1,000 settlers will make their home on Kanbar Island. Cat demons have already started building an international trading port there. They also decided to build a fortress on the riverbank in the center of each city. This fortress would serve as the foundation for the future kingdom. Shinku says that trading is going as planned. She also mentions that exporting magic iron and magic steel is forbidden. Tadashi wants to know why these materials can't be taken out of the country. The girl says it's all because the country is getting ready for war. She believes that weapons made from magical iron and steel will give their nation an advantage. Isolane asks which war with the county you're talking about. The girl says that letting in so many people would basically be declaring war. Isolane says that she and her people will leave the island as soon as they pay off their debts. She explains that this land was always meant for those who couldn't live in the principality, so the principality won't lose anything. Shinko says the girl is too naive. He explains that almost nobody from Ganbar Island is left since so many people keep leaving. She agrees, saying nobody will notice because everyone in charge here is a complete fool. Still, she will come up with a plan to strike back, thinking through different options. Tadashi says he trusts her, since he doesn't understand anything about military tactics himself. Shinku says you can count on her. Owarin adds that the dwarves will also do everything they can for the king. Isolane says that this time, the sea elves and the island demi-humans won't act like they did before. Shinku tries to scare the girl a little by saying that if someone attacks them, they'll just run away to the nearest fishing village. Eren cheers her up, saying that at least they have her to be brave. Shinku replies with sarcasm that she'd love to hear her plan then. The hero tries to calm them both down. He says he's looking forward to hearing back from both of them. Shinku says that even though the Count's army is strong, if they work together and plan their attack carefully, they can win. She says it all depends on how strong Tadashi is. The hero asks her what she means. The girl explains that his divine power came down from the heavens. Shinku heard that with this power, it's possible to cleanse the entire land. The main character says he's not sure if he's mastered this yet, so he probably doesn't have enough strength to fight. Shinku turns to Tadashi and asks him not to be so judgmental. She says that the hero's power is a strong weapon that has brought a lot of prosperity to their land. Tadashi looks at her, surprised. Tadashi says he will think about it. He knows he is ready to do whatever it takes to protect his loved ones. He is a king, and it is his duty to keep his people safe. The story now moves to the Frontrunner district, inside the Palace of the Century. Matilda shouted in confusion because a huge mine had just started working. This mine is supposed to feed the entire country. She's told that workers have been disappearing one by one. The girl doesn't understand why this is happening. She knows that if they stop making weapons, their army will fall apart. Suddenly, Ojin walks in and apologizes. He brings something for Matilda. She asks what it is. Ojin says he brought these things because they have to do with what happened. Ojin says that these mushrooms are picked near the border of Ganbol Island, because they don't grow in such large numbers on their own island. The girl tries a mushroom and says she doesn't understand what he's trying to say. Auten says that people just move to places where the land is better for living. But the girl replies that there's no place quite like the land of dreams. Oceans shares the following results of the investigation. A new country has appeared at the border. Matilda says she has heard about border areas that have become unlivable. She doesn't believe that the missing citizens left their country and escaped abroad. She gets annoyed that they acted before the Demon Kingdom responded. She asks who can handle this situation. Suddenly a voice is heard from behind the door. It turned out to be General Graham, the leader of the Celestial Star's army, who carries a magical sword. He's asking for permission to destroy the kingdom. The girl asks Ojin if he's allowed to do that. The man quickly says no. He asks Matilda to remember his mission on Hanbar Island. Back then, his squad of 100 men attacked the beastmen without orders and burned down their whole village. The girl says she is busy getting ready right now. She doesn't mind if he can take her place. The criminal general replies that she should have realized this much earlier. Ojin tries to argue, but Matilda stands firm. She says she has already decided to trust Graham's team. Ojin looks at her, surprised. The girl asks Graham not to let her down this time. He promises he won't disappoint her. Graham and his team are heading to the island. One of them mentions that the rumors were true. Graham confirms it. Yes, all the elves, beast folk, and others have already moved to the border areas. He says that if they try to escape, they'll make a big mistake. The man is once again looking to profit from this situation. Graham orders his men to steal whatever they can. while he goes off to gather information in enemy territory. The soldiers follow his orders. Once the job is done, Graham plans to relax and have some fun. The squad enters the village and is surprised to see that it's empty. One of the soldiers comments that the elves from the island and the beastmen have disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise. Demonic beasts are charging toward them. The group is completely stunned and doesn't know what to do. The soldiers are shouting that everyone needs to scatter. One of the fighters says that some ordinary bird is pecking at him. Graham is fighting off the monsters with all his strength. He yells at the soldiers, telling them not to let their guard down. He explains that these aren't just normal animals. They're real demons. Top-class cows and chickens. Graham orders all 5 of them to attack together. He finds it strange that these demonic creatures are so aggressive. Graham realizes he was too careless before, and now he knows he has to be much more careful in this area. Shinku, Eren, and Tadashi watch everything from behind the bushes. Shinku says that, just like Eren predicted, they're using demon beasts to lower the number of soldiers. Shinku asks Eren why she's been so quiet for so long. Suddenly, Eren asks Tadashi to leave the guards with Shinku. Shinku wants to know if she's planning to attack them. The girl says her village was burned down. She can't forgive them and wants revenge. Tadashi tries to calm Eren down, but she won't listen. She says they have to act now or never. The girl asks the hero to leave quickly. Tadashi realizes an attack is coming soon. The girl jumps into the fight, thanking the hero for letting her attack. The team of beastmen rush at their enemies. The beastmen are charging into battle. Graham turns and notices them. He's about to run away when suddenly someone calls out to him. The ruler of the beast people appears in front of him. The man recognizes her. The girl attacks him right away. Graham is surprised by her unusual sword. The man says that if Eren fights with a magic sword, she has good taste. The girl is full of hatred for her enemy. She is sure that this man is the one who burned her village. But suddenly Graham starts to smile. He says that this time, Eren will burn in the flames. The man puts a spell with sulfuric acid on his sword. He attacks the girl, but she manages to dodge just in time, which really surprises him. Graham can't figure out how she managed to escape. The girl tells him that he won't be able to humiliate her anymore. Eren adds that thanks to Tadashi, she's now a 4-star warrior. Graham is surprised that the spell with sulfuric acid doesn't affect the girl. Eren attacks her again, but she fights back with several strong blows. At one point, she breaks his sword and then pierces his chest with her own weapon. Holding the sword to her chest, the girl says, "This is for Cornell." The man looks at Eren in horror and starts to cough. The girl clenches her teeth and yells that Graham is here and will soon leave this world. The man looks at Eren and throws another insult at her. The girl pulls the sword out of her body. She stands there looking confused. The hero quickly approaches her and asks if Eren is okay. The girl turns to him and says she managed to handle it. The hero looks at her and says she really did it. He tells her that this battle is for them. The story now moves to the favorite principality, the castle of the century. Matilda hears that Graham's squad was defeated, but she can't believe that Graham himself, who wields the demon sword, could have lost. Oyan insists that it's true. He says that according to the soldiers who somehow managed to escape, the squad was attacked by demonic beasts and beastmen. The girl asks him to repeat it one more time. She asks if the neighboring kingdom is using demonic beasts. Oyan says they underestimated their enemies. The girl gets annoyed. But then she says this information is really important right now. Ojin explains that they are collecting data about migrants and smugglers who are leaving the country. They also received a letter from the neighboring kingdom of Tadishi. Matilda opens the letter. Ojin writes that there are a few things they want to discuss with the representatives of the principality, especially the issue of the captured soldiers. Matilda says she will come to talk about everything. Oyan asks her if she can handle it on her own. The girl says that as the squad leader, she can't leave her teammates behind, even if they were captured. Ojin looks at her in surprise, then says he'll take care of all the preparations. The girl says that in the end, the famous Order of the Heavenly Star suffered a heavy defeat from the beasts and beast people. She thinks it was a mistake to underestimate the situation and just let things happen as they did. Ojin asks Matilda not to rush and avoid making the same mistakes as before. The girl replies that she's not a child anymore and doesn't need to be lectured. The girl clenches her fists. Ojin obeys. But he realizes that sometimes a leader has to pause and look at the situation before moving forward. Matilda replies that they can't stop now. She says everyone is ready to go, so they need to sail to the Gambala Islands with 2,000 knights and 20,000 legionnaires, just as planned. The girl says she will take 1,000 knights with her when she goes abroad. Ojin says he'll go with her to the meeting. The girl agrees. Everyone arrives on the island and is surprised to see the port that Tadashi's kingdom is building. They walk onto the dock. Matilda can't understand where they got the money for all this. Ojin explains that they are supported by the trading company Shinku, as well as the company Katie, with the blessing of the god of wisdom. Matilda says she doesn't see any warships or soldiers around. She points out that even though these people are rich, they don't seem to have much military power. Ogun suggests that maybe they're just hiding their true strength. Munchin says that there are some very dangerous demon beasts at the borders of Tadashi's kingdom. He reminds Matilda once again that she should never let her guard down or get too relaxed. The girl says she already knows everything. Suddenly, they hear someone greet them from behind. It's Tadashi. He asks if they are the ones representing the principality. The girl asks who they are. The hero replies that his name is Tadashi Ono. He works as a farmer, but he is also the king of this country. The girl is surprised that an ordinary person like him can create so much chaos. Ojin leans closer to Matilda, quietly says something to her, and points at the hero's hand. He tells her that he has 9 lucky star marks on his hand. Tadashi explains that people often say this is a pretty rare thing. He says he got 7 of those stars for his achievements in farming, blacksmithing, and acts of bravery. The girl doesn't believe that the hero really has so many stars. Ojin tells her she should believe it. Matilda gets annoyed. She thinks the man is trying to make her believe in some silly joke about having lots of stars. Ojin says it's impossible to build such a wealthy country in this remote border area. But if the hero was blessed by the god of agriculture, that would explain everything. Matilda gets upset. Tadashi remembers the peace talks. Shinku says their demand is simple. If the kingdom wants their captured knights back and forgiveness for invading, they must officially recognize their group and promise not to interfere in their lives. Matilda thinks it's just arrogance. She says the heroes took 10,000 people from them. The tavern owner teases the girl, saying things like this happen when a country is in bad shape. Tadashi says that Matilda's kingdom needs more food. He says they can sell it for less because of their trade routes. Matilda says no, so the hero asks what exactly they need. Matilda says she first wants her craftsmen to return, and she also demands that the beastmen and elves be let back onto the island. The head gnome says they came to Tadashi by choice, so they get to decide who they want to serve. The elves hug Tadashi. They say they are now Desha's wives, so they'll only listen to him. Aaron says that Matilda won't be their boss anymore. Matilda says they already have a rightful ruler, and she doesn't care about any other decisions. They're not for her. She rejects the offer. Instead, she suggests becoming their vassal, and promises to protect them from the threat of the demon lord. Erin is upset. She says they can't agree to this condition because the principality hasn't kept its promises for a long time. Matilda replies that if they don't want to accept her offer, she'll just go home. Matilda and Odgin return to the kingdom. Odgin tries to talk, but Matilda interrupts him, saying everything is fine. Better than expected, actually. She insists they need to get the army across to Kamba Island as soon as possible. The girl says they are about to attack Tadashi's kingdom right now. Surprised, Ojin asks if they really want to use their army to fight back against the Demon Kingdom's attack. He says that nobody really knows how strong the Tadashi Kingdom's army is. Ojin adds that there's absolutely no information about them at all. Starting a war in this situation would go against every rule of warfare. The girl says that's exactly why they're planning a surprise attack. Matilda adds that the enemy already has at least 10,000 demonic beasts, and they can't wait any longer or those beasts will get even stronger. Matilda says they'll have to fight both the Demon Kingdom and the Tadashi Kingdom at the same time. It's no joke, but they're ready to do it anyway. She asks Ogun if he has seen those rich, fertile lands. She says that if everything goes as planned, they can easily double their army, and then victory over the Demon King's forces will be in their hands. Ojin asks if Matilda is planning to just rely on luck to save her kingdom. She replies that their kingdom is in such a tough spot that they can't survive without taking risks. She says that as the commander-in-chief of the Principality's army, the leader of the knights, and the prince's representative, she is ordering a surprise attack on the kingdom of Tadashi. Matilda says that if they don't start taking action, their situation in these lands will only get worse. Ojin replies that he understands her and, out of respect, he will follow her order. The action moves to Kanbar Island. A soldier comes up to Ojian and tells him they managed to fight off the attack of the demonic beasts. Ojian notes that it wasn't easy. In the end, many of the beasts were defeated. No matter how strong the demonic beasts were, they just couldn't stand up to an army of 20,000 warriors. Ocean wonders if it's time to put an end to Lady Matilda's invasion of the port. He tells a soldier to take a ship and head straight to Madame Matilda. The soldier follows his orders. Ojin thinks there is plenty of food in the city, and more supplies keep coming in. Now, he can only hope that the girl won't make a wrong choice in the future. Odgin tells Matilda that the city's coast is now completely secure, and the attack by the demonic creatures has been stopped. The girl says she expected nothing less from him. She's sure this will be a huge victory. Ozan looks at her. Then he asks, why not just leave things as they are? The girl doesn't understand what exactly he means. Ojin says they didn't run into any resistance, except for attacks from demonic beasts. He thinks all the local people were probably evacuated deeper into the country. He also mentions that the enemies most likely planned to catch everyone by surprise. Matilda realizes that even the OGN couldn't pull off a surprise attack. The man says the latest report mentions a castle built on the Sorrow River. He believes that's where the enemy army's base is, and warns that it might be a trap for them. The girl says that apparently Tadashi is here with others too. She wants to attack as soon as possible. Bojin tries to talk her out of it. Matilda asks her husband if he still hasn't realized that the greatest treasure in this place is this very person. The girl says that because of him the land became fertile, so she wants to catch him alive. Ojin disagrees, warning her that it's way too dangerous since he has all 9 blessing stars. Matilda says that even if they manage to beat his blessing, they still don't have the farming blessing. Even the hero's blessing is only 1 star, so they shouldn't expect to build a big army. The girl says that she will always stay alert and fight with all her strength. The ocean replies that it will go right away to talk to King Tadashi. He says that right now, they could win, but if they use up all their strength taking these fertile lands, they won't have enough power left to defeat the Demon King. Matilda says Oyan is talking nonsense because he was the one who said there are too many traps there. He can't go there alone. The man answers that if he goes by himself, he'll die. But he believes that if you strike hard at the main army, the entire kingdom will collapse. The girl disagrees, saying there could be no traps at all. Ojin interrupts her, reminding her that he taught her not to just do what she wants. The girl yells at him, accusing him of trying to act like her mentor again. She says that if they set up traps, even more enemies will come. Ojin interrupts her, saying that's exactly what they want. Suddenly the girl shouts his name loudly. She says that just a few soldiers are enough to hold the occupied lands. She wants to send the whole army to destroy the river castle. She adds that this is her final decision. Ojin is shocked and tries to change Lady Matilda's mind. The army of the principality launched a fast attack. The hero had already guessed this would happen by their actions, but only a few people were left in the port who didn't manage to evacuate. Tadashi hopes that this prediction won't come true. Suddenly Eren flies up to him on her Kura. She says there are about 200,000 enemies, but only around 3,000 of them are real soldiers. Tadashi decides to just watch for now. Meanwhile, ships are getting closer to the shore. All the ships have already left the island. The tavern owner who sold information about the principality's army to the heroes had carefully planned everything, but no one can promise that the heroes will win. Tadashi thinks to himself, they call it the Royal Castle, but really, it's just a wall made from magic steel, built around the fortress. Suddenly, Shinku comes up to Tadashi and asks what he is doing. He tells her that she once said he could do something. He explains that he has been thinking a lot about how he can protect everyone. He knows he can't let the principality destroy the village, the city, the whole country, everything he built himself. Now he'll do everything he can. Shinku looks at the hero approvingly. Suddenly, she turns to Tadashi and steps closer to him. The girl kisses the hero, then steps back. She tells him that if he wins the war, she will let him marry her. The hero looks at her awkwardly and says that deep down she's always wanted this. The girl says she feels this is the right place. Tadashi asks if he should have confessed his love before the kiss. She tells him that wouldn't work for a hero like him, because if you tell him everything up front, he'll just say no. The hero smiles and thanks the girl for cheering him up. He says she even made a joke about it. Shinku agrees that it all happened just like that. The hero takes a moment to reflect and realizes that he's made it this far thanks to the friends he's met over the years in this world. Elf Girl Ice, Beastman Eren, Dwarf Oberon, Cat Girl Sinku, and Fenrir Karuru. All of them are very important to the hero. Suddenly, he remembers what Kronos said about a river of sorrow flowing through this land, poisoned with deadly toxins. If he gets a blessing from the goddess of agriculture, he'll be able to cleanse both the water and the soil. The hero remembers how he once got the power of a blessing, which helped him purify a river filled with deadly poison in a place where no one could live before. Now, he puts his hand into the water and uses this same blessing to start cleansing it. The scene shifts to the enemy ship, inside a cabin. Ojin and Matilda hear shouting, rush out of the cabin, and Matilda asks what's going on. Someone tells her that the bottom of the ship keeps leaking. Suddenly, a big fish jumps onto the deck. Matilda asks Ojin what kind of strange and mysterious fish this is. He tells her it's a fierce, almost demonic fish, known around here as the devil salmon, and that it lives in the poisoned rivers. The girl says she looks like a character from a legend, and Matilda asks why she showed up here. Ojin guesses it might be because of Tadashi's power. Then, all of a sudden, Ojin starts worrying about his army because something feels off to him.